Chapter 1442. Suspicion. Once he had his suspicions, he had to take action. This had always been Han Zhao's style. He had asked Philip to monitor the various intelligence in the Galactic Society and report any abnormal movements immediately. However, after being cautious for a few months, he did not discover anything, and the situation did not change. Because of the pivotal snake, the World Tree civilization impatiently attacked the border defense circle time and time again. The other troops entered the battlefield as if they were free, not caring about the damage. However, the Galactic Alliance army was not to be trifled with. How could their defense line be broken so easily? Even in the secondary dimension battlefront, the World Tree-blessed race invaded several times. However, with Han Zhao guarding the shallow dimension, he was like an unshakable guardian god. The blessed race invaded time and time again, but they were defeated time and time again. They abandoned countless fleets and ran away, allowing Han Zhao to kill them all. The worst thing was in terms of individual strength. The World Tree realized that it was completely crushed. At the front lines of the flickering world, there was Aurora, the healer, God, and Herberlin, the top combatants. The World Tree experts exchanged injuries for Zero, and the secondary dimension guardian was Han Zhao, who was at the transcendent grade. Even the Tree King did not dare to show his face, let alone the others. All of a sudden, the Holy Tree emissaries, ancestral spirits, and army leaders realized that they were no longer useful. Neither battlefront needed them. If they had already invaded their homeland, they could still rely on their individual strength to move around the universe flexibly, just like special forces, dragging the energy of the enemy civilization and causing all kinds of damage. However, in the current situation, they could only wait for orders. After a few months of war, the tens of millions of players had also reintegrated into the atmosphere of war. They could choose from both battlefronts, and the missions were much more abundant. Their wallets also slowly became thicker. Unfortunately, version 5.5 had unlocked a new level cap. The players' main goal was to level up, and they did not have much money left to spend. As more and more players stepped into the Calamity grade, a qualitative change slowly appeared. The players became more prominent on the battlefield, and the three universal civilizations paid more attention to them. From the perspective of the upper echelons, the explored universe was rich in resources. For a long time, with their strong productivity, they would be able to fight against the World Tree civilization. However, there was always an end to this path, and the World Tree was still better in this aspect. They have other plans. Han Zhao stroked his chin and made up his mind to collect the secrets of the Supercluster Alliance. In any case, regardless of whether there was a problem or not, it was not a bad thing to investigate. It would be best if he could find something that could be used against them. After sending a message to Philip to pay attention to this information, Han Zhao exited the quantum network and walked out of the room. A huge cloud appeared in front of him. It was the pivotal snake hiding inside. Beside it was the breeder, the realmless king, and a bunch of mechanical troops acting as bodyguards. Everyone was currently in a secondary dimension, allowing the pivotal snake to devour to its heart's content. Han Zhao had been using the mobile fortress to follow closely behind them. While protecting them, he was also thinking about how to speed up the growth of the pivotal snake. For this reason, he had no choice but to give the pivotal snake a comprehensive examination. Naturally, the pivotal snake was unwilling, but under his strong control, it could only stare coldly and unwillingly at Han Zhao as he played with its body. After checking its body, Han Zhao realized that the pivotal snake did not have a gender. It could also be said to be hermaphrodite. After a more detailed inspection, Han Zhao also figured out the reproduction method of the pivotal snake, which made him feel complicated. The reproduction of the pivotal snake required the use of the secondary dimension that gave birth to a consciousness to carry out mating. It absorbed the secondary dimension in another way and turned it into an embryo. This kind of behavior could be said to be independent reproduction or hybridization. In any case, it did not need the help of its own kind. However, it made sense. The pivotal snake would most likely not be able to meet another of its own kind in its life. Furthermore, it was being hunted down by the world tree. If it could not reproduce alone, it would have been extinct long ago. The problem was that the pivotal snake usually ate secondary dimensions. In other words, what did this snake do to its food? Furthermore, after sleeping with it, it even ate it and absorbed it as nutrients. It could even eat it after sleeping with it. Was it a female mantis? All kinds of thoughts flashed through Han Zhao's mind. He looked at the pivotal snake that was not polite to him and had some ideas. No matter how much the pivotal snake eats, it will at most become fat. It will not enter the mature period quickly. The growth of living creatures has to follow the rules. However, if I change the foundation of its existence, I wonder if it will be useful. A bold idea popped up in Han Xiaoxin's mind. If the pivotal snake was allowed to develop properly, who knew how long it would take for it to reach adulthood? However, if he used life transformation virtual to turn it into an artificial intelligence life form, then the difference in its life form would be like heaven and earth. Could he directly inject a large amount of data to accelerate its maturation and quickly reach adulthood? The only problem was that he did not know if the pivotal snake could still retain its sense of the world tree after its form of existence changed. Logically speaking, if the sense came from the information form level, then no matter what type of life form the pivotal snake became, it should not have any effect. However, Han Xiao did not dare to take the risk now. There was only one pivotal snake, and he could not reverse it. If he broke it, it would be gone. If only I could get another one for me to experiment with. Han Xiao narrowed his eyes and looked at the pivotal snake with ill intentions. Why don't I let this snake give birth now? Speaking of which, it's still a baby. Can it stand up? Han Xiao fell into deep thought. Just as Han Xiao was studying the breeding profession, the World Tree Civilization made some discoveries. In the Tree King Palace, the ancestral Tree King listened to the report from the front line and revealed a subtle expression. Are you sure? The particles you intercepted recorded a large amount of information about the enemy civilization? Yes, these particles used microscopic recording technology that involves dimension conversion. We're still trying to decipher it and restore the specific content, but we can't be wrong. There are many spatial coordinates and star maps of the enemy's territory inside. There's such a thing? The ancestral Tree King's eyes flickered. The two armies were in a stalemate at the border, and the World Tree had also built a base, placing it at the entrance of the three universal civilizations. Not long ago, an urgent report came from the front line. The radar of the frontline base had discovered signs of an abnormal space reaction and a weak energy explosion somewhere a certain distance away, so they sent out an exploration team to investigate, afraid that the three universal civilizations would not be satisfied with defending and would cause some trouble. However, after some inspection, they found that it was a temporary wormhole that had disappeared by the time the exploration team arrived. To be cautious, the exploration team followed the traces of the energy explosion and searched. The microscopic field of vision scanner quickly discovered that there were some floating special particles in this area that seemed to have been thrown in all directions by the explosion. Thus, the exploration team collected a portion of them, but they did not expect to find a large amount of information related to the three universal civilizations. As soon as he found out about this, the ancestral Tree King's first reaction was to deceive them, thinking that it was fake information from the three universal civilizations that wanted to trick them with false information. His second reaction was that there was a traitor in the three universal civilizations, and for some reason, they wanted to collude with the enemy. This was not the first time the World Tree had encountered such a thing. During their conquest of the universe, as long as their opponent was a composite civilization alliance, they would not be united. His third thought was that there was a third party watching them, wanting to add fuel to the fire and take advantage of the situation. The World Tree was also very experienced in this. The variable actually appeared here. These thoughts flashed through the Ancestral Tree King's mind, and a strange expression appeared on his face. He seemed to heave a sigh of relief, but also seemed to have a cold smile on his face. He had been at a loss for the past few months because of the war with the three universal civilizations. He did not expect someone to give him a pillow when he was about to doze off. The most important thing now was to confirm if the information was real. As long as it was not fake information deliberately released by the three universal civilizations, there would be a turning point in the battle. Decipher all the content as soon as possible and sort it all out. At the same time, try to reverse engineer the origin of this wormhole. The Ancestral Tree King did not hesitate and asked the research department to produce results quickly. Whether it was a traitor or a third party, no matter what their purpose was, no matter if they wanted to use the World Tree or not, it was not important to him. What was important was to kill the three universal civilizations and remove the Mother Tree's greatest threat. As for the other problems, when the threat was eliminated and the World Tree was invincible again, there would be plenty of time to slowly resolve them. The Ancestral Tree King had always been able to grasp the main conflict. On the other side, in the strategic command room of the Siebert Fortress in the Flickering World, reporting, there is an abnormal spatial reaction outside the border. It is suspected to be a wormhole. A notification came from the military radar. The many military officers present went up and looked at the source. They found that the abnormal signal was outside the border defense circle, not too far from the World Tree's base. "Can we investigate and see what's going on there?" a staff officer asked. "There is insufficient information. It is recommended that we investigate on the spot," the military artificial intelligence replied. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other and muttered softly. The Border Defense Army was stationed at various posts in the defense circle. If they left this place, it would be very difficult to deal with the tide of the World Tree Fleet without the endless defenses and fast support channels. Therefore, the Border Defense Army had always been focused on defense, and would not take the initiative to attack. The source of the abnormality was outside the defense circle. If they wanted to investigate on the spot, they had to send their fleet out. Not only were they keeping an eye on the World Tree's movements, the World Tree had also been keeping an eye on the defense circle. Once the Border Defense Army sent out a fleet, the World Tree would definitely send troops over to fight in the field and eat up their fleet. Furthermore, from the distance, the World Tree was closer to the source of the abnormal reaction. Even if they sent troops over, there was an 80% chance that they would not gain anything. Generally speaking, the border troops rarely sent people to carry out such high-risk missions of unknown value. However, the players happened to be suitable for this job. Thank you, Huang Maoyuan, for your 10,000 reward. End of chapter. Chapter 1443. Our mission this time is to investigate the abnormal signal area outside the border defense circle. There's a high chance that we will encounter the World Tree Fleet. Everyone, be prepared to sacrifice yourselves. In the cabin, the light blue projection of the remote commander floated on the tactical command platform, explaining the details of the mission to the players in the room. If it was a normal person, he would not have mentioned sacrifice, but it did not matter to the immortals. Those who participated in this mission were all players. Most of the time, this kind of groundless investigation mission was a mistake and would not yield anything. If not for the players who were in the Suicide Squad, the command center might not even be willing to send people to investigate. Most people were listening attentively, but Black Tea was distracted. He stayed behind the crowd and flirted with the female players on the forums. As an old player who had entered the pit in version 1.0, Black Tea had seen everything. Now, he was more interested in female players. The process of these combat missions was more or less the same. It was nothing more than charging, dying, taking the money, and finishing. In any case, no matter how much the commander said, when it came to the actual execution, they would still have to adapt to the situation. Black Tea was familiar with it and already had his own way of doing things. In his opinion, there was no need to listen to the details. If he had the time, he might as well flirt with a few girls. Not long after, the hyperdrive stream covering the ship dissipated, and the reconnaissance team had already arrived at their destination. In the universe outside the window, there was a World Tree team that seemed to be searching for something in this area. The number of battleships was less than half of this reconnaissance team. As soon as they saw the reconnaissance team of the three universal civilizations, they quickly turned around as if they wanted to escape together. Discovered the World Tree Fleet. Attack. The commander naturally did not hesitate and immediately gave the order. This reconnaissance team opened fire at the World Tree exploration team without hesitation. The interceptor accelerated and chased after them with a group of players on board. Very soon, they caught a few World Tree exploration ships that could not escape in time. Bang! 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 The interceptor shot out charge cabins one after another and bit the bodies of the enemy ship. They drilled through the outer armor and embedded themselves inside. The players inside boarded the ships and planned to control the spaceship. High-temperature flames spewed out, and laser energy shot out in all directions. The players immediately started a massacre in the exploration ship and fought with the members of the World Tree. It could be said that they were unstoppable. The World Tree warriors were either burned to ashes, beaten into meat patties, or shot into sieves. The ground was filled with incomplete corpses. Black Tea tilted his body slightly and dodged a laser beam. He pointed his sword finger, and a white pugilist energy shot out. It was sharp and cold like an energy sword, piercing through the chests of the three World Tree warriors, instantly killing them. What do you think? Handsome, right? Little brother, you're so awesome. Can you bring me to clear dungeons in the future? The female player in the video acted coquettishly. That depends on your performance. Black Tea had a smug smile on his face as he spoke in the private chat channel. Even though he was on the battlefield, he was still flirting. He turned on the video call so that his good sister could see his heroic bearing. In the past few months, he had already completed the level 180 promotion mission and successfully advanced into the Calamity grade. He was undoubtedly the leader among the current players. This kind of boarding battle was no pressure to him at all. He could fight while flirting with girls with ease. The reason why he chose the pugilist class was naturally because it was the most gorgeous of the 5 classes. Whether he was strong or not was a matter of the version, but whether he was handsome or not was a matter of a lifetime. While Black Tea was chatting, his teammates had already crushed the World Tree warriors and were getting further and further away. Watching the group of people leave happily, Black Tea did not follow them. He smiled and shook his head, revealing the demeanor of an elegant master. He gave pointers and said, "You can't let your head get carried away when you're doing a mission. Look at these people, they're classic examples of the opposite. It wasn't easy for them to get the chance to be unparalleled, but they're already being reckless. You have to use your brain when you're on a mission." After casually showing off, Black Tea did not follow the main group. He turned around and walked into the corridor alone. He casually broke through the cabin wall or floor and went straight into the belly of the ship. Very soon, he arrived in front of a door without any obstructions. On it were the words Analysis Room and Research Area written in the language of the World Tree civilization. Because the spaceship had been invaded, all the guards had gone to protect the energy core, power engine, control center, bridge, and other key areas. There was no one here, only some simple defense facilities, which were dismantled by Black Tea in no time. "Little brother, why are you here alone?" The female player blinked and asked in confusion. "Hee hee, I told you to use your brain. Think about it. Our mission is to investigate the abnormal situation in this area, and the World Tree troops are one step ahead of us, but they're staying here as if they're looking for something. This proves that they've already discovered something. The World Tree exploration ship is equipped with a simple analysis laboratory, so there might be clues here. This is the main goal of our mission. If we can snatch the World Tree's exploration results, we won't need to take the risk of staying here to investigate. We might be able to keep our lives. Black Tea took care of all the defense facilities and walked into the room as he spoke. Wow, you're so experienced. The female player was full of admiration. It's alright, mainly because I've seen too much. Black Tea acted modestly and was secretly delighted. Although he was indeed experienced, he was just trying to show off his wisdom. He wanted to show that he was different from those pig trotters. As for whether he could gain anything here, it did not matter. However, at this moment, Black Tea suddenly stopped in his tracks and looked up at one of the transparent experiment cabins. There was a ball of light floating inside. When he looked over, the interface jumped, and a notification popped up. You have triggered the hidden mission, a source of upheaval. Mission introduction. You have discovered an important clue that can change the situation of the war. It has immeasurable value. If you bring it back, it will greatly affect the direction of the war. Mission requirements. Use a container to store the clue and bring it back to the 3 universal civilizations to report. Reward. Depends on the evaluation. Black Tea was stunned. No way, I was just bragging. Did I really get something? See, I told you, there must be a clue here. Black Tea immediately became excited. He shared the mission interface with the girl and immediately went to the experiment cabin. After fumbling around for a while, he found the store button and pressed it. Sizzle. Tiny electric arcs flashed in the experiment cabin, guiding the ball of light into a palm-sized round tube container. The lids at both ends of the container automatically rotated and closed. The precision mechanical parts with strong magnetic force inside were embedded with each other, making cracking sound. Then, the tube slid along the transparent pipe and popped out half of it from one of the holes on the console, which meant that it could be taken away. With a click, Black Tea opened the chest area of his mecha and stuffed the tube into one of the storage slots. Then, he closed the mecha and protected it. Then, without another word, he went back the way he came from and immediately reported the situation. This battle did not last long. The reconnaissance team chased away the World Tree exploration team, and only the remnants of the enemy escaped. Because this place was relatively close to the World Tree base, the reconnaissance team did not want to chase after them. Originally, they did not care about sacrificing themselves and were prepared to stay here for a while to investigate the abnormal situation. However, after receiving Black Tea's information, the team changed their plan and retreated to avoid being chased by the World Tree's follow-up troop. As soon as the reconnaissance team left, the World Tree's reinforcements arrived late. They symbolically chased after them for a while and gave up when they approached the border defense circle. They watched as the reconnaissance team that had intercepted a coded particle returned to the 3 Universal Civilizations camp. Not long after, the container that Black Tea brought back was transported to the research center of the frontline base. Under the research of a group of scientists, its true appearance was gradually revealed. This is, the leader of the research team looked at the deciphered content and widened his eyes in shock. He took a few steps back, not daring to believe what he was seeing. Leader, what did you find? The officer who was waiting for the results felt his heart skip a beat and hurried forward. The leader of the research team came back to his senses and pounced in front of him. He grabbed the officer's shoulder and said with a panicked and anxious tone, "Bad news. Go and inform the 3 leaders and His Excellency Black Star. Our territory's star map has been leaked." As soon as he said that, the expressions of all the officers and researchers present changed drastically. What a pain in the ass! On the other side, in the Tree King's palace. Your Excellency Tree King, according to your instructions, we have already handed a portion of the coded particles to the enemy. The other party should be certain that this is the information they have intercepted. Well done. The ancestral Tree King narrowed his eyes and nodded. At such a close distance, the frontline troops had long discovered the uniqueness of the coded particles. How could they have been so careless? All of this was done on purpose. It was only when the three Universal Civilizations reconnaissance troops defeated the World Tree Exploration Team that their reinforcements arrived late. They pretended that they could not catch up, but it was all fake. The real goal was to let the three Universal Civilizations obtain a coded particle in a way that made them less suspicious. This move is not bad. When they see the leaked information, they will most likely suspect that there is a mole. They will definitely be in chaos. The Fortitude Tree King nodded. A powerful fortress can be broken from the inside. Suspicion is the best weapon, the Ancestral Tree King said calmly. No matter who leaked this information to him, in his opinion, they most likely did not want to be discovered by the three Universal Civilizations. He did the opposite. The Ancestral Tree King did not mind being used, but he would not make the person using him too happy. Since they wanted to use him, they had to bear the corresponding risks. On the other hand, even if the person using him did not care, the Ancestral Tree King still wanted to use this method to cause suspicion and even division within the three Universal Civilizations. That's right. After all, not all civilizations can be as united as us. Everyone is connected to the mental network and is coordinated by the Mother Tree. There are no secrets, the Fortitude Tree King agreed with a smile. The Ancestral Tree King narrowed his eyes and glanced at him. He did not know if this was the truth or if there was a deeper meaning behind his words. In the three Universal Civilizations leaders' office, Marbruce, Lewis, and the Ethereal Pope received the emergency report about the coded particles from the front line and immediately held a meeting. Looking at the countless pieces of information about the explored universe that were being deciphered endlessly, the three of them were livid. Gloomy anger was faintly discernible on their faces. How bold! Someone actually colluded with the enemy. The Ethereal Pope slammed the table and said angrily, "No matter who it is, we have to find them." Marbruce's eyes burned with anger. Originally, the situation was good. Relying on the Border Defense Circle and Han Shao, they could resist the World Tree for many years. However, before they could enjoy the good days of sitting on the high platform for long, there was a traitor in their family who leaked countless information. With these coordinates, the World Tree could jump through space, avoid the Border Defense Circle, and directly invade, opening countless battlefronts, breaking the stalemate and regaining the initiative. They had worked hard for so many years to protect their territory from being invaded. Now all their efforts had gone to waste. The three of them were already beyond furious. They wanted nothing more than to eat the traitor's flesh and drink his blood. At this time, Han Shao arrived. His remote projection appeared in the room. He frowned and went straight to the point. He frowned and said, "You said that the information of the Galactic Society was leaked? What's the exact situation?" "See for yourself." Marbruce split a piece of the virtual screen and flew it to Han Shao. Han Shao glanced over and quickly understood the situation. His expression changed. His first reaction was that the World Tree was trying to sow discord, using some kind of method to obtain information and then causing suspicion among them. However, this information was so detailed that it would be impossible for someone who had not been in the explored universe for a long time to collect it. Therefore, it was more credible if someone leaked the information. Either a traitor colluded with the enemy, or a third party took advantage of the situation, Han Shao said. "That's what we thought too," Marbruce said with a gloomy expression. "But in comparison, the possibility of a traitor is higher." Han Shao stroked his chin and said, "If it's a traitor, the goal is definitely not to survive. With the current situation, the entire galactic society basically believes that we can resist the World Tree, so the traitor must have other goals, such as taking revenge on you guys or taking advantage of the situation. We know that. Lewis's eyes flashed coldly. Before this, they had already discussed the suspects. Among them, the most suspicious were the Supercluster Alliance and the second-tier star cluster civilizations. Even the Beyond Grade A Association was somewhat suspicious, so the three of them were wary of Han Xiao. Although the current good situation basically came from Black Star, the position of the three of them made them suspect Han Xiao. This was because even though Black Star had made so many contributions, he still had a motive. This time, Han Xiao's eyes suddenly flashed, and he said in a low voice, "Perhaps the World Tree deliberately leaked this information to cause internal strife among us." However, halfway through, Han Xiao stopped and shook his head helplessly. Even if the World Tree did it on purpose, the information leak was real. Even if they guessed that this was the World Tree's plan, they could not let go of their suspicions. This was an open scheme. If the information leak was the work of a third party, it was unknown if they had predicted this step in advance. While helping the World Tree, they had also used the World Tree to arouse suspicion in the Galactic Society. Han Xiao paused for a moment and put away these guesses. He changed the topic and said, "No matter what, the battle situation has changed. Prepare as soon as possible to deal with the World Tree's full-scale invasion. This is the most important mission." The three of them nodded, their brows filled with gloom. Although the three universal civilizations had made preparations for war in the various star fields, compared to the flickering world's border, the defenses in the other areas were naturally much weaker. There were also countless planets scattered around, allowing the enemy to enter the familiar rhythm of using battle to support battle. We have to find the traitor. Since he has done such a thing, he will definitely do something beneficial at some point. Sooner or later, he will be exposed, the ethereal Pope said coldly. The sooner we confirm the target, the better. I'll immediately order a special team to investigate this matter, Lewis said. This time, Han Xiao thought for a moment and said, "I need to study these coded particles personally. Maybe I can find some clues." Hearing this, the three of them exchanged glances and nodded. "We can give you a portion of the coded particles for research. I hope you can find clues as soon as possible." Okay. Looking at the three of them, Han Xiao knew that he was also one of their suspects. He could not help but shake his head. At this time, he did not care about this. If he was sitting in the position of the three of them, he would not trust anyone either. I didn't expect the version name to come true so quickly. Who's causing trouble? It can't be them, right? Han Xiao thought to himself. The sneaky Supercluster Alliance and the figures of the Avengers flashed across his mind. Chapter 1444. Han Xiao learned the details from the three leaders, so he did not continue to participate in their brainstorming. He deactivated the remote projection and went to the Frontline Research Institute. As soon as he walked into the experiment hall filled with instruments, he could smell the anxiety and panic in the air. Countless researchers were coming and going, sweating profusely as they deciphered the encoded particles. "Your Excellency Black Star, Ruler Marbruce has given me a secret order. Please follow me." An officer who had been waiting for a long time immediately came up and led Han Xiao into the corridor. Not long after, the two of them arrived at a private laboratory. There was a team of experts working on the deciphering as well. However, unlike the deciphering of the content of the encoded particles outside, this place was also responsible for looking for the technical characteristics of the encoded particles. As soon as the door opened, Han Xiao could hear endless arguments inside. The structural deviation of this particle is obviously too high, forming a typical 3-branch ratio with Marvel's reading. It has the characteristics of K-Epoch warping technology and cyberspace conversion. It's definitely an application based on the third theoretical model of particle space science. It's just similar. You ignored the characteristics of dimensional conversion and the weakening of the nuclear force. This is obviously a technology that has been eliminated by the three universal civilizations. Han Xiao turned around and saw the experts gathered in front of the experiment table, pointing at the readings on the instrument and arguing. The same theory could be extended to all kinds of applications. It was just that although some technologies were similar in terms of appearance and final results, there were many differences in the actual process of use. In a less accurate but simpler way, it was probably equivalent to the difference in the order of strokes and the font of calligraphy. For example, there were 4 ways to write the characters, so there was naturally more than one way to modify the particles. By studying the characteristics of these technologies, they could reverse engineer the specific technology used by the encoded particles. This was also the focus of their research at this time, trying to narrow down the scope of suspicion through the technology used by the encoded particles. Han Xiao did not hide his footsteps and walked over. Only then did the experts realize that there was an outsider. Seeing that it was Han Xiao, they all lowered their heads and bowed respectfully. He looked up at the encoded particles floating on the experiment table and waved his hand. "All right, stop arguing. Let me see what's going on. If you need anything, please tell us." The group of experts did not object and retreated to the side, obediently giving up the experiment table behind them. Black Star was not only the most powerful individual in the galaxy who was on equal footing with the 3 leaders, but he was also one of the most powerful scientists. These researchers had always admired Black Star, and almost half of the people present were his admirers. They were usually respected senior researchers, but now they were willing to be his assistant. Han Xiao glanced at the reading and studied the coded particles from the beginning. He quickly analyzed the data in his mind and quickly locked onto a few technologies. His expression changed slightly. As far as he knew, these technologies seemed to be used by the members of the Supercluster Alliance. Of course, he could not rule out the possibility of other organizations imitating them. According to normal judgment, the Supercluster Alliance is even more suspicious, but it could also be a deliberate framing. If that's the case, it's more like a traitor within the Galactic Society. With a thought, Han Xiao released his mechanical force, connected to the coded particles, and activated Bold Explorer. Buzz. Han Xiao's vision suddenly changed, and he arrived at a research institute with a different style. Many researchers were operating. A huge device was buzzing, and particles were being unfolded in low dimensions one after another. Information was recorded, and then they were restored, turning into coded particles that were injected into 3 white cylindrical containers. He could not control his vision and followed the 3 white tubes closely. The white tubes were placed into a suitcase and sent into the groove of a material transfer device. The next moment, his vision turned again, and he had already arrived at a secret underground base. He saw another material transfer device, and with a flash of light, the white suitcase was transferred over. A few lifeforms walked forward and opened it, revealing the white tubes inside. At this time, his vision changed again, and he came to a cosmic space. A blue and black wormhole opened in front of him, and then 3 white round tubes were thrown in. They passed through the colorful space tunnel and flew out from the other end of the wormhole. Then, the 3 white round tubes suddenly bloomed with hot light and self-detonated, releasing a wave of energy. The encoded particles inside were all thrown out. In the last scene, a World Tree exploration team wrapped in green light appeared in the distance. The illusion stopped abruptly, and Han Zhao's vision returned to normal. Looks like these coded particles came from nothing until they were intercepted by the World Tree. Han Zhao's eyes sparkled. Chapter 510 Literature. Although the illusion provided by Bold Explorer did not involve a specific location, Han Xiao was basically certain that a third party was behind this. There was no other reason. It was simply because the researchers he caught a glimpse of in the illusion were all unfamiliar species. And among the people who received the white suitcase, there was a species that should have disappeared in history long ago. The Lorax people, the intelligent species of the Lorax civilization. The Lorax civilization, the loser of the exploration era, was destroyed by the three universal civilizations. It should have been destroyed. Han Xiao flipped through the information and pondered. All kinds of possibilities appeared in his mind. From the looks of it, the Lorax civilization had survived, and their goal should be revenge. They were not fighting alone and had even found helpers. Those intelligent species had never appeared in the history of the three universal civilizations, so they should be foreign civilizations. According to the details of the information in the coded particles, this foreign civilization should have been lurking in the explored universe for many years without being discovered. TSK, another old enemy from the exploration era. The three universal civilizations are constantly paying back their debts for their past deeds. Han Xiao subconsciously rubbed his fingers. In his previous life, during the World Tree War, this foreign civilization did not appear and did not seem to have interfered with the direction of the war. Now they took the initiative to backstab the three universal civilizations. Perhaps it was because this foreign civilization was in a different situation in different timelines, or perhaps it was because the situation in his previous life did not require their intervention. Of course, Han Xiao was not sure if this foreign civilization had taken action in his previous life. The players did not have the relevant information. Seeing that the three universal civilizations have the advantage, they want to destroy our strategy, destroy our advantage, and help the World Tree invade us. They want to take revenge by borrowing someone else's knife, but they also want to take advantage of the situation. They want to hide in the dark and watch the tigers fight. TSK, their intentions are sinister. Han Xiao guessed the motives of the foreign civilization while thinking of a solution. Although he had confirmed that a third party was behind this, he did not know the other party's location, so he could not follow the clues. If he searched on a large scale, it was very likely that the foreign civilization would withdraw all their spies and completely cut off all clues. Furthermore, without evidence, it would be difficult to convince the three hooligans. Although with his status, even if there was no evidence, the leaders of the three universal civilizations would still value his words. However, now that even he was suspected, his credibility would naturally be reduced. The three leaders would at most be skeptical. Information form obliteration could see the connection threads, but this was a destructive skill. He could not see the specific situation and did not have the ability to trace it back to the source. Even if he erased this batch of coded particles, there was a high chance that the World Tree still had others, and he would not be able to resolve this situation. After all, this skill erased an individual, not an entire concept or collective. It would not happen that if one or two people were killed, the others would forget about the entire human race. In fact, the effect of information form obliteration was very precise. It would not affect the target's other information too much. Therefore, the effect of this move would be more unique when it came to the split parts of a similar whole. If he used information form obliteration on the coded particles in front of him, Han Xiao estimated that the result would be that the three leaders would remember that he had taken some things to study, but they would forget that he was studying the coded particles. Furthermore, the experts present would not remember what they were studying previously, and the readings of these instruments would be erased. If he erased the other coded particles that the three universal civilizations had intercepted, Han Xiao felt that the three universal civilizations would probably forget about the existence of the coded particles, but they would remember that something had revealed the secret of the spy leaking the information. On the other hand, the World Tree remembered that they had given the three universal civilizations something, but they had forgotten to hand over the coded particles. However, they would not forget the coded particles in their hand. Han Xiao had made a hypothesis. If he used information form obliteration to deal with the entire World Tree civilization, the reaction of the three universal civilizations would most likely not be, "What have we been doing all these years?" but "We defeated a universal civilization with great difficulty, but we can't remember the name of that civilization." Therefore, information form obliteration had a very good effect on individuals with information differences, such as living beings. However, when dealing with individuals in batches, such as a grain of sand in a desert, a gun in a batch of standard firearms, the information gap could actually be deduced using logic. For example, if the expert team forgot what they were studying previously, but came to the experiment hall and saw that others were studying the coded particles, they would be able to deduce that they were also studying this thing previously. However, even if you used logic to deduce it, information form obliteration would still be in effect. You would subtly have memory deviations, quick forgetting, subconsciously ignoring, common sense fallacies, and so on. It was like you remembered something, but you suddenly forgot about it in the blink of an eye. No matter how hard you tried, you could not remember it. This kind of situation was not uncommon. It was also like you believing that the temperature of a normal person's bathwater was 80 degrees instead of 40 degrees. There would be a common sense deviation that was hard to notice, or the legendary 99 war. In any case, I have to think of a way to catch these spies. Currently, I can only use conventional methods to secretly gather information. It's best if there are more surveillance artificial intelligences in the quantum network. They most likely want to continue observing the follow-up effects of this borrowed knife to kill people. Seeing the three universal civilizations suffer, they probably didn't retreat. Sigh, if only I could get the World Tree's information form warning network. This thing is practically a black technology to prevent the territory from being infiltrated. Han Xiao shook his head helplessly. Compared to the World Tree, the territory of the three universal civilizations was like a sieve. Other people could enter and leave as they wished. They could even leave something inside, and the three universal civilizations would not be able to discover it in a short time. It was simply the standard configuration for victims. He stroked his chin and pondered. The goal of the World Tree and the third party was to cause internal strife in the Galactic Society, so the most important thing now was to not let the enemy's plan succeed. Since the spies could not be found in a short period of time, and the three universal civilizations' suspicions could not be dispelled, it seemed like he could only start from the suspects. It seems like the three universal civilizations are most suspicious of the Supercluster Alliance, and they happen to have other plans behind the scenes. However, I haven't found out what's going on yet. If this causes a misunderstanding between the two sides, I'm afraid we'll be in deep trouble. Han Xiao was helpless. In the past, he had always tricked the Supercluster Alliance, and it was not the first time they had fallen from the sky. However, it was the opposite now. He had to think of a way to reduce their suspicions so that they would not become scapegoats. Indeed, they had to pay for what they did. Chapter 1445. In the next few days, the World Tree Army lay in ambush, and did not launch any attacks on the borders of the flickering world or the shallow dimensions. There was a short pause in the flames of war. However, the strategic command center of the three universal civilizations did not relax at all. The atmosphere was as if they were facing a great enemy. They knew that this was only the calm before the storm. The armies that were originally stationed in the various star fields for emergencies were put to use. They all entered a state of war and patrolled the areas they were in charge of. The coded particles leaked the star map of the entire explored universe, including countless spatial coordinates. The enemy had too many routes to choose from, and it was possible to invade from anywhere. Han Xiao sent most of the mechanical oracles to the main universe to increase the scale of the high-level combatant. Originally, the three universal civilizations already had the advantage in terms of individual strength, but if the World Tree invaded, the role of the high-level combatants would be completely different from a head-on battle. Extremely high flexibility brought about powerful destructive power, and the battlefront would be divided into countless pieces. As the defending side that had to chase after the enemy, their beyond grade as would still not be enough. Apart from dealing with the changes in the situation, Han Xiao had also been secretly searching for spies from foreign civilizations over the past few days. Unfortunately, he was looking for a needle in a haystack and did not find anything. However, he did have some results from his investigation of the Supercluster Alliance. So they want to escape while the battle is intense, and the three universal civilizations have no time to care about other things. They want to leave their control and head to the unexplored universe to find a place to reproduce and develop freely. Han Xiao looked at the information on the virtual screen with a strange expression. How badly had they been bullied by the three universal civilizations to the point that they did not even want their hometown? He could roughly understand the thoughts of the Supercluster Alliance. If they stayed in the explored universe, they would only be suppressed endlessly and restrained by the three universal civilizations. No matter how they developed, they would not be able to surpass these three ceilings. When the situation was reshuffling due to the invasion of foreign enemies, the Supercluster Alliance considered their future and made a choice. In order for their civilization to develop freely, they decided to take the risk and explore the unknown. This was understandable. After all, they had never been on the same side as the three universal civilizations. This is bad. The invasion of the World Tree is their chance to escape. If they really do that, yellow mud will fall into their pants. Even if it isn't sh*t, it will still be sh*t. Han Xiao rubbed the space between his eyebrows, secretly feeling a headache. He had already told the three leaders about the results of the third party and even directly pointed out the existence of the Lore civilization. However, the situation was not unexpected. The three of them did not say that they did not believe him at all, but they only accepted that this was one of the theories. Unless there was conclusive evidence, they would continue to look for the traitor. Only when the battle became chaotic and the three universal civilizations could not spare any energy would the Supercluster Alliance be able to carry out the plan. However, it just so happened that someone leaked the information at this time. Wasn't this a coincidence? To be honest, if Han Xiao did not know the truth, he would have felt that the Supercluster Alliance was an iron wolf from the perspective of the three universal civilizations. They would definitely have attracted the invasion of the World Tree to escape. In his previous life, the Supercluster Alliance did not do this. Instead, they stood on the side of the Galactic Society and fought against the foreign enemies together. This time, they made a completely different choice. Perhaps it was because the time was different and the upper echelons were different, so the logic of their decision was different. Perhaps it was because their situation was slightly different from his previous life, and most of it was because of the butterfly effect that he had brought about. It was even more likely that the Supercluster Alliance had not personally witnessed the power of the World Tree's invasion like in his previous life and had not experienced the true threat of this universal calamity, so they still felt that they could stay away from the flames of war. In other words, they had not been beaten up by the World Tree. I have to convince the Supercluster to cancel the escape plan, or the internal division will be right in front of us. However, this kind of grand strategy involves the development of future civilizations. No matter how big my face is, the Supercluster will not be moved by me with just a few words. Han Xiao pondered. On one hand, he did not want the Supercluster to take the blame and let the third party get away scot-free. On the other hand, the Galactic Society needed the strength of the Supercluster to resist the invasion of the World Tree. As long as they were determined to fight, their combined strength could not be underestimated. They were also an important part of the explored universe's strength. I have to think of a way." Just as he was thinking, an urgent internal message from the 3 universal civilizations military popped up on the virtual screen. Primeval Star River, Ancient Star Desert, Sea of Star Spirits, Black Hole Edge, Endless Nebula, Shattered Star Ring, and other star fields have discovered traces of the World Tree Fleet. Request reinforcements. Request reinforcements. Han Xiao suddenly sat up straight, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. It's here. In the ancient star desert, blue wormholes were formed one after another, forming a huge oval-shaped spatial rift. It was as if a god had cut open the curtain of the universe, leaving behind a dark blue scar. Immediately after, a green light appeared in the huge spatial rift. It turned from dark to bright, from small to large, and finally turned into an overwhelming green tide that poured out. The seemingly endless World Tree Fleet crossed the border of the flickering world and descended along the wormhole. The dense hyperdrive streams condensed into pillars of light that shot out in all directions. Like a plague virus that had been injected into the enemy's body, it began to spread in the blink of an eye. Countless World Tree warriors had fanatical looks on their faces, as if they were holding a carnival. After being in a stalemate for so many years, they had finally charged in and dismembered their prey. The planets that the World Tree Fleet passed by had violent fluctuations in the outer space. Thick World Tree roots tore open spatial rifts as if they were drilling through the soil. They extended out from the void and stabbed into the planet. Like straws, they extracted dazzling energy that could be seen with the naked eye. The planet's crust softened and flowed into the World Tree roots like a fluid. The planet's mantle and core were also devoured in large mouthfuls. The planet slowly shriveled and rapidly declined. Wherever the green tide passed, the stars slowly extinguished, and the planets gradually melted, leaving behind only death and desolation. This reminded the World Tree warriors of the past. They roamed the boundless universe, tasting the delicious taste of the enemy's territory without any scruples. They cut off pieces of meat from the struggling prey and ate everything from the enemy like they were alive. After all, they were the top hunters in the universe, the only predators. The same scene happened in multiple star fields at the same time. In a hurry, the Galactic Alliance Army and the local star system and star cluster civilizations launched a counterattack, chasing and intercepting them. The flames of war burned through the explored universe like a prairie fire. The battlefront was divided into countless lines, and the World Tree experts finally had a place to use their strength. They were scattered all over the place and moved in groups of 2s and 3s, completely displaying the flexibility of high-level combatants. The Beyond Grade, as of the 3 universal civilizations, could not continue to stay together. They could only leave Aurora and split up to reinforce the various areas. The sudden change scared countless galactic residents. The good situation was instantly reversed. The foreign enemies wreaked havoc in the territory, and the panic that was suppressed in the bottom of their hearts broke free from the reins of rationality. It gushed out like a volcanic eruption, burning away their remaining rationality. Many refugee planets were in chaos. The ancestral tree king looked into the distance. His gaze seemed to have passed through the barrier of endless space and locked onto the direction of the central galaxy. Eat everything. You have given us a feast, and we will return despair. In a certain army base in the Shattered Star Ring, the Black Star Corps were exchanging fire with the descending World Tree Fleet. In the battlefield, there was also a black tide formed by mechanical soldiers moving about, tearing apart the World Tree battleships one after another. On a planet not far away, dozens of World Tree roots had already pierced into the core of the planet and were absorbing energy. In outer space, 3 Holy Tree emissaries were chasing after 2 figures, and 5 streams of light collided again and again. Clang! Lodhair held a dagger with both hands, one facing forward and one facing backward. The speed of his blade was as fast as lightning, and it danced in a silver glow. His body was agile, and he moved back and forth between the three holy tree emissaries. He fought fiercely, and the silver dagger collided with the laser beams and magic again and again. He looked unstoppable, but in reality, he was already covered in injuries. In the intense battle, he had to divert his attention to take care of Carrot, who was slightly weaker, so it was inevitable that he would reveal flaws. Lodhair crossed his daggers and slashed out a resplendent light blade, forcing the mechanical pugilist Holy Tree emissary to retreat. A light suddenly lit up from the corner of his eyes, and he dodged to the side without hesitation. All of a sudden, a gorgeous high-level arcane light pierced through his waist, leaving behind a burn mark. Did you dodge the attack? Your reaction is quite fast. The mage Holy Tree emissary who attacked spoke with a regretful tone. Among the three Holy Tree emissaries, 2 of them had never appeared on the battlefield before. They were all foreign experts who had been holding back. It was only when they entered the territory of the 3 universal civilizations and split up countless battlefronts that the World Tree activated the foreign experts to increase the scale of their high-level combatants. Butler on one hand, they were flexible enough to split up. Even if Black Star had the method to awaken the foreign experts, they would not be caught in one fell swoop. On the other hand, the World Tree did not care about anything else. As long as they could speed up their invasion, they did not care about losing some people. They were already mentally prepared for a portion of their experts to be wiped out by Black Star's information form obliteration. Lodhair's expression was tense. He pressed on his wound and used his energy to urge his cells to recover quickly. The wound quickly scabbed over. He glanced at his 3 opponents and was shocked. His pugilist style focused on agility, concealment, and assassination. Direct battles were not his forte, and being surrounded was even more disadvantageous. At this moment, he could not take it anymore. Can you still do it? Carrot, who was at the side, came over. He was also covered in wounds, and he stood back to back with Lodhair, staring at the enemy. He had only entered the Beyond Grade A realm a few years ago, and the new stage of Everlasting Martial Path was still being activated. His combat strength was still at the level of a new Beyond Grade A, and it was very difficult for him to fight. He might not even be able to defeat any of his opponents in a one-on-one battle. The 2 of them were originally training here, but the World Tree suddenly attacked and dragged them into the flames of war. I can still hold on for a while. Lodhair adjusted his aura, and the pugilist flames climbed up again, condensing at the blade. The 5 of them locked onto each other. Their bodies paused for a moment before suddenly exploding at the same time. They charged forward again and clashed brazenly. Saber light, aura flames, and magic power shot out. The 5 streams of light were like 5 threads, tangling into a mess. Suddenly, Lodhair's body paused, and his 2 daggers slashed out across light blade, shattering the arcane attack of the mage Holy Tree emissary. However, in the shattered light, the mechanical pugilist suddenly appeared. He was thrown over by the hand of magic. 8 mechanical spears that looked like spider legs suddenly extended from the back of his mechanical suit. The tip of the spear broke through the protective flames and pierced into Lodhair's body. Crack! The silver blade flashed, and the 8 mechanical spears were cut off. The cut was as smooth as a mirror. Lodhair retreated quickly, controlling his muscles to squeeze out the spear tip that was broken in his body, leaving 8 shallow wounds. This injury was just a superficial wound to him. However, just as he was about to continue attacking, his body suddenly stiffened. A dark green color suddenly appeared on his wounds, and the flesh that was originally recovering suddenly started to fester. Biological poison? Lodhair's expression changed. He looked up and saw that the broken spear tip that had been ejected was seeping out green liquid. He looked at it with his microscopic vision and saw that this green liquid was a group of dark green micromolecular robots that carried shocking poison. Waves of intense nerve pain erupted like a tsunami, and Lodhair's senses suddenly became chaotic. It was as if he had lost control of his body, and he began to tremble unconsciously. The cells in his body were corroded on a large scale. With a flash, the last pugilist Holy Tree emissary took advantage of the opportunity to enter. He held a sharp blade made of anti-regeneration alloy in his hand and stabbed it into Lothair's neck from behind, wanting to remove his entire spine. Right at this moment, Carrot charged over from the side to stop this pugilist Holy Tree emissary. Unfortunately, he was one step too slow and could only throw a punch in an attempt to save him. A mere new beyond grade A super wants to. The pugilist Holy Tree emissary originally wanted to kill Lothair even at the risk of being injured. However, just as Carrot's fist approached, a strong sense of danger exploded in his heart. The flames all over Carrot's body flowed like water, condensing into the tip of his fist. He did not release his strength, but the momentum of his fist rose steadily. It was as if the heavenly river was hanging upside down and the stars were shattering, bursting out with an indomitable sharpness. At this moment, a shout that contained spiritual fluctuations exploded like a clap of thunder. Martial God Fist. Galaxy Break. The fist suddenly landed on the arm of the pugilist Holy Tree emissary, and a strong light suddenly blossomed, snatching away everyone's vision. Time seemed to have frozen for a moment before it started to flow. The other two Holy Tree emissaries regained their vision and hurriedly looked over. They saw that Carrot had already retreated to the side with Lothair in his arms, while the pugilist Holy Tree emissary stood rooted to the ground, still maintaining his defensive posture, but he did not do anything else. However, the next moment, the body of the pugilist Holy Tree emissary cracked like porcelain and withered. In the end, it turned into dust and scattered into the galaxy. One-hit kill. What kind of move is this? The remaining two Holy Tree emissaries were shocked. They could not believe their eyes. One of their colleagues was killed in an instant. It was understandable if it was a peak beyond grade A, but was this the power of a new beyond grade A? Lothair had a chance to catch his breath and suppress the poison with difficulty. Seeing this scene, he could not help but widen his eyes. "You've already created that kind of fist technique?" Who? No, I've only created 2 styles. I'm still far from perfecting the martial god fist. Carrot had expended a lot of energy. This punch had gathered all of his essence, energy, and spirit, and its power far exceeded his level. At this moment, his entire body was sore and weak, and his stamina was almost depleted. When he stepped into the beyond grade A realm, Carrot had some special insights and an idea. He wanted to create a pugilist style that was suitable for him and named it Martial God Fist. The reason he used this name was not because he was arrogant, but because it contained his expectations for himself. He hoped to create a beyond grade A fist technique that would allow a heifer to fly into the sky. All these years, Carrot had been fumbling around and integrating the strengths of hundreds of schools. Until now, he had only comprehended 2 moves. The power was extremely exaggerated, but the consumption was also frightening. With his foundation as a beyond grade A pugilist, he could only throw 3 or 4 punches. Lothair looked at the enemy's corpse that had turned into dust and said, "What a terrifying move. You've already surpassed me. Do you want to learn? I can teach you." Carrot smiled shyly. The 2 of them thought that this martial god fist was powerful, but if Han Xiao was here, he would be able to see that although the martial god fist was mysterious, it would not be able to display such power when used by others. The truly powerful one was Carrot himself. This was because the process of creating the martial god's fist was also the stage where Carrot integrated everything he had learned. During this process, he would be able to comprehend a new specialty almost every few days. Among them, 3 of the pugilist specialties were extremely powerful. Martial Saint Might. When used, the base power of any pugilist skill will increase by 80% to 240%. Martial God Fist Ancestor. When using the Martial God Fist series of skills, the base power will increase by 100% to 300%. One Punch Martial God. Every time you use the Martial God Fist series of skills to hit the opponent, you can trigger a heavy injury or instant death judgment. The success rate depends on the power of the skill, the difference in level, energy rank, attribute, and so on. If the judgment fails, an additional 50% to 150% damage will be dealt. With a bunch of pugilist talents, although Carrot was only a new Beyond Grade A Super, his explosive power was unbelievably strong. As long as he was lucky, it was even possible for him to instantly kill the enemy. Bang bang! Carrot clenched his fists, looked at the two Holy Tree emissaries, and said to Lodehair, "I still have some combat strength left. Continue attacking, don't let them escape." Okay. Lodehair gripped his dagger tightly, his eyes sharp. In the time when many people were not paying attention, the face of the pugilist was quietly taking shape. Chapter 1446. Somewhere in the Sea of Star Spirits, a planet of refuge was already tightly wrapped by the roots of the World Tree. The soil, minerals, and forests all turned into liquid and flowed into it. In the distance, the emergency ship carrying the people of this planet was fleeing in the Sea of Stars. Behind the fleeing fleet, a World Tree fleet was chasing after them. The escort fleet of the Galactic Alliance Army was covering the fleeing fleet, fighting as they move. The two sides exchanged intense fire, leaving behind traces of energy explosions everywhere they passed. The light was reflected in the panicked eyes of the fleeing people. 10 figures with a metallic luster charged left and right in the escort fleet, constantly shooting out psionic cannons, destroying spaceships one after another. They were the Mechanical Apostles, and their master was in the main ship of the World Tree Fleet. It was a Lord's avatar, controlling the mechanical army to fight from afar. However, there was not a single Beyond Grade A in the escort fleet, so they could only use their battleships to stop the advance of the 10 Mechanical Apostles. The enemy has a Beyond Grade A mechanic. We urgently need high-level reinforcements. Seeing the one-sided situation, the commander of the escort fleet had no choice but to order the fleet to fight and retreat. He also anxiously asked for reinforcements in the military channel. The World Tree sent out a large number of foreign experts without any hesitation. The number of high-level combatants instantly exceeded the 3 universal civilizations, and all of them moved out, pulling their forces apart. As a result, the 3 universal civilizations did not have enough Beyond Grade as to stop every World Tree expert. There would always be gap. In this battle, this fleet that escorted the evacuation of the civilians did not have any high-level combatant. When they encountered the World Tree fleet with the Mechanical Army commander, they were immediately beaten black and blue. Please continue to hold on for a while, releasing the Beyond Grade as who are currently free. The military artificial intelligence's reply immediately sounded in the channel. The commander gritted his teeth and shouted, ordering the fleet to continue attacking. However, the scale of their army did not change qualitatively. The 10 Mechanical Apostles led the army and swallowed starships one after another like locusts. Just as the number of casualties became more and more shocking, a space on the battlefield rippled like water. Then, with a flash of light, a figure rushed out like a burning meteor and slammed into the nearest Mechanical Apostle, sending it flying. Reinforcements are here. The commander's spirit was shaken, and he hurriedly looked at the Beyond Grade, as who had come to support him. When he saw the person's appearance, the joy on the commander's face froze. "Why are you here? What's with your disappointed tone?" "I'm the only one who's free now. If you don't want to, then I'm leaving." Kohler was furious. "What's wrong with you, little brother? I'm here to help, and you're looking down on me? I'll leave the enemy's mechanic class supers to you. My troops will support you from the side." The commander smiled bitterly and could only bitterly express his willingness to cooperate. Kohler snorted and charged towards the 10 mechanical apostles. Even though there were tens of thousands of them, he still charged forward. Many soldiers looked over with a glimmer of hope. However, in less than a few minutes, the imposing Kohler was pinned to the ground by the joint attack of 10 mechanical apostles. The commander covered his face. The internal rumors were not lies. Kohler was indeed the weakest among the beyond grade as. I don't want to despise you, but you're too much of a drag. You can't even stand up when I give you a chance. Not to mention a real battle, I don't even like to use you when playing Wayne cards. Kohler dodged a few psionic energy beams and punched back, sending a mechanical apostle flying. He quickly shouted in the channel, "What are you waiting for? I've helped you stall the enemy. Continue to ask for help. Your tactical role is only to stall for time." The commander cursed in his heart. Just as he was about to continue calling for reinforcements, a wormhole suddenly opened not far away. A mechanical life flew out from it. Heavy mechanical armor covered its body, and every part of its body was equipped with high-tech melee weapons. It was fully armed, and 2 wing-type vector thrusters stood on its back like 2 chess pieces. It was one of the Black Star mechanical oracles who had received the order to support the various battlefronts in the main universe, the heaven-suppressing flag. Black Star's elite troops are here. Kohler was overjoyed and quickly waved. They're on our side. Relay. Electric arcs flashed in the eyes of the heaven-suppressing flag, and the thrusters spewed out streams of light. He instantly accelerated and rushed into the battle in a flash. 10 mechanical apostles detected a strong energy reaction, and 8 of them immediately faced the heaven-suppressing flag, leaving only 2 to deal with Kohler. A dense barrage of psionic cannons shot out, and the arm of the heaven-suppressing banner turned into a heavy shield. It abruptly pushed forward, and the surface of the shield lit up with dazzling and complicated energy circuits. A thick psionic shield immediately popped out and blocked the barrage of attack. Amidst the bombardment, the distance between the two sides quickly shortened. A mechanical apostle's wrist blades popped out from his arms and slashed out at the same time, heading straight for the energy core of the heaven-suppressing flag. However, the heaven-suppressing flag only spun around lightly and dodged the attack. The moment he brushed past it, he touched his waist, and a folded mechanical axe unfolded. It slashed out like a bolt of lightning, and the blade light instantly swept past the mechanical apostle's body. The next moment, the mechanical apostle that was cut in half flew out due to inertia. The cut was smooth, and countless precise parts that had been cut in half could be seen. In the center was the energy core that had been cut accurately. The energy reactor that had lost its restraints jumped slightly before exploding. A huge explosion lit up behind the heaven-suppressing flag, reflecting on his cold alloy shell. The heaven-suppressing flag was a melee weapon master among the mechanical oracles. All kinds of weapons appeared like magic, constantly changing, and dealing with the mechanical apostles with ease. Not long after, he killed more than half of the mechanical apostles like cutting vegetables. It was a completely different situation from Kohler. Suddenly, the heaven-suppressing flag stomped on the ground, and an energy shockwave exploded behind him. He turned into a meteor and charged straight at the World Tree Fleet, shuttling through the barrage like a fish. The axe slashed out rays of light, cutting the World Tree spaceship in half. In just a few blinks of an eye, the heaven-suppressing flag arrived in front of the main ship, and the giant axe wrapped in golden lightning slashed down. Thick golden electric arcs shot out from the axe blade, instantly shattering the shield of the main ship and melting through the armor of the ship. The entire spaceship exploded, and a dazzling light spread out. At this moment, 2 figures rushed out of the explosion, one chasing and one escaping. The Lord's avatar of the Mechanic General was running in front, and the heaven-suppressing flag was chasing after it. However, after a few rounds, the heaven-suppressing flag chopped the other party's head in half, exploding with electric arc. The power carried by this body instantly disappeared, and the Lord's descent had already been destroyed by him. He had the spirit of taking the head of the enemy general among thousands of soldiers and horses. With the current strength of the mechanical oracles, ordinary beyond grade as were no match for them at all. Their strength was completely different from the mechanical apostles, and it was not a problem for them to take charge alone. It was enough to close the gap between a portion of the high-level combatant. With the high-level combatants of the enemy eliminated, the escort fleet immediately stopped their collapse and counterattacked tenaciously. The heaven-suppressing flag did not continue to help. He reached out and removed the damaged head of the enemy's lord's avatar, hanging it on his waist as a trophy. He was about to open a wormhole and leave, but at this moment, Kohler flew over and gave him a thumbs up with a face full of joy. "Well done. We worked together and finally dealt with this powerful opponent." "When did we work together? Were you fighting just now?" The heaven-suppressing flag tilted his head, confused. He did not have any impression of it. "I helped you hold back 2 mechanical apostles. Without me, you would have been in danger." Kohler patted his chest and said casually, "Who asked me to be good friends with Black Star? Protecting his mechanical apostles was just a matter of convenience. There's no need to thank me." The heaven-suppressing flag was still silently calculating the logic of this sentence when Han Zhao's annoyed voice sounded in the channel. "Shut up, you're really a noob." So you're here." Kohler laughed and was not embarrassed at all. "I was just joking with you." Hee hee. Han Zhao curled his lip. "Heaven-suppressing flag, ignore him and continue your mission." The heaven-suppressing flag shook his head and ignored Kohler. He opened a wormhole and followed Han Zhao's orders to support the other battlefronts. Primeval Star River, Mechanical Race Territory. The Endless World Tree Army was pressing down on the Mechanical Race's defense line, and the 2 fleets were already locked in battle. On the main planet of the Mechanical Race, Manison and Nilfgaardi's Lord's avatar stood at the highest point. They looked up at the sky, and the green tide slowly approached. The Mechanical Race troops behind them did not panic at all. Instead, they looked at the backs of the 2 generations of Mechanical Race leaders fervently. The Mechanical Race is actually the first target of the World Tree's attack. Do they think we're easy to deal with? We're not easy to bully. Nilfgaardi stood with his arms crossed, and arcs of lightning jumped on his body. "You don't have the right to say that. The reason why the Mechanical Race has developed to this point is all because of me. It has nothing to do with you," Manison said calmly. Nilfgaardi snorted but did not refute. He slowly said, "I didn't expect us to fight side by side under such circumstances. I know you don't like me, but don't worry, this battle won't take long." As soon as he finished speaking, Manison raised his hands slightly. Rumble! All the planets in the Mechanical Race's territory started to buzz, as if countless things were about to break out of the ground. After accumulating for so long, let the world see the foundation of the Mechanical Race. Manison's eyes flashed and his tone was cold. "Listen to my orders, leave no one alive. Rumble!" It was as if an endless mechanical army flew out from the planets, covering the sky and earth as they welcomed the invading World Tree fleet. It's starting. Many Star Alliance observers who were lurking in the news could not help but smile happily when they saw the turmoil in the various star zones. The World Tree invaded the entire territory overnight. It's obvious that our intelligence came in handy. Very good. Very good. The observer captain clenched his fists with a ferocious expression. He was relieved that his plan had worked, but also excited about revenge. This time, the results of getting someone else to do the dirty work were very obvious. They successfully turned the stalemate into a chaotic battle. This was what the Star Alliance wanted to see. It would be best if both sides suffered heavy losses. This way, even if the three universal civilizations can fight the World Tree civilization to a standstill, it will be difficult to stop their territory from being devoured step by step. At this rate, the three universal civilizations will be defeated sooner or later. It might take decades or centuries, someone said excitedly. The observer captain sneered. This is only the first wave. In my opinion, the three universal civilizations won't be able to last that long. According to the deduction of the upper echelons, the World Tree will most likely use the information we leaked to trigger the internal suspicions of the three universal civilizations and destroy their fighting spirit. Since the start of the war, the morale and faith of the three universal civilizations have been supported. When this energy is released, it will be time for them to be defeated. As he spoke, a look of longing appeared in his eyes, as if he could see the defeat of the Galactic Society in the near future. The three universal civilizations have been high and mighty for too long. It's time for them to taste the feeling of their homeland being destroyed, just like us back then. On the other side, the Supercluster Alliance. The sudden full-scale invasion of the World Tree shocked the Supercluster Alliance. Although the Supercluster Alliance had received some news from the three universal civilizations over the past few days, they had only asked them to strengthen their internal defenses. There was no mention of the inside story, so the Supercluster Alliance did not know about the leak of information in the explored universe. The various star fields were attacked, and the various supercluster civilizations were naturally targeted. However, compared to the intense battles in other areas, the World Tree fleet that invaded the supercluster civilization was very small, as if they were just here to go through the motions. The supercluster civilization thought that the World Tree did not want to bite them in the first wave of attack. While surprised, they were also glad. At this moment, an important meeting was being held in the conference room. Everyone, the three universal civilizations' border defense line has been lost, and the World Tree has fully invaded. Let's put aside the reason for this for now. The current situation is developing in the direction we are looking forward to. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity has already appeared in front of us, and we cannot miss it. I think we can consider officially starting the Great Migration Plan. The Star Arc leader spoke with a deep voice. Everyone whispered to each other and discussed among themselves. Their faces were filled with hidden surprise. Everyone felt that it was very magical. Originally, they could only passively wait for the opportunity to break out, but they did not expect the opportunity to come so suddenly. It was as if the goddess of luck was on their side. Seconded. I agree too. Everyone voted one after another. They had been waiting for this opportunity for too long, and there were very few objections. Now that the World Tree had successfully invaded, it was tearing apart the flesh and blood of the explored universe every second. The three universal civilizations could not care less about one thing and the other. If they stayed here, they would only end up being devoured and wasting their troop. No one wanted to lose everything, so they decided to give up on the territory that would fall sooner or later and leave as soon as possible to preserve their strength. They did not want to leave at all. Seeing this, the Star Arc leader nodded, took a deep breath, and said, "It seems like everyone's opinion is more or less the same. It's decided then. Let the three universal civilizations drag it out with the World Tree for a while longer. After they officially enter a stalemate, we will immediately start the plan." As he spoke, he paused for a moment before continuing solemnly. "Everyone, once we embark on this path, there is no turning back. For the future of our civilization, we can no longer rely on others." Everyone nodded slowly. The tragedy of the pinnacles, the economic blockade, the trade sanctions, the encirclement of the flickering world, the experiences of being bullied by the three universal civilizations flashed through their minds one by one, making them even more determined. However, just as the Star Arc leader was about to give a speech to strengthen his determination, a communication request from Han Shao suddenly popped up on the virtual screen. "Black Star? He wants to see us at this time? The eyes of the upper echelons of the civilizations present narrowed, and their nerves tensed up. As the saying went, a thief has a guilty conscience. Although their escape was the result of careful consideration, from the perspective of a war, it was considered a deserter. Therefore, just seeing Han Zhao's name made everyone feel an invisible pressure. The Star Arc leader raised his hand and gestured for everyone to calm down and keep quiet. Connect me and listen to what Black Star has to say. Chapter 1447. Han Zhao's remote projection appeared in the conference room. With a glance, he had already seen the expressions of all the super-star cluster leaders sitting there. He could not help but chuckle and joke. He could not help but chuckle and say, "Everyone, what were you talking about just now? The atmosphere is so solemn." "We're naturally talking about how to deal with the invasion of the World Tree," the Star Arc leader said with a deep voice. "Is that so? But as far as I know, the World Tree Civilization's army doesn't seem to have harassed your territory much. Most of your troops are still on standby." Han Zhao shrugged. "The entire galactic society is united against a common enemy as a whole. If other areas are attacked, it will also affect our safety. Under the premise of ensuring the safety of our homeland, we will naturally lend a helping hand," the Star Arc leader said righteously. Han Zhao's expression became subtle. "These words coming from your mouth are really strange. With the invasion of the World Tree, we're already in the same boat." The Star Arc leader nodded and said with a solemn tone, "If you think so, that's for the best." Han Zhao raised his brows. He knew that the Star Arc leader was most likely just saying that and did not mean it. A supercluster leader coughed and asked, "Your Excellency, why are you here?" "Your Excellency Black Star, are you here to discuss the invasion of the World Tree?" Han Zhao looked at him and nodded. "You can say that, but I'm mainly here for you guys." Everyone exchanged glances, and the Star Arc leader said, "I hope you can explain it clearly." Han Zhao raised his arms, crossed his arms and said casually, "Don't worry. The invasion of the World Tree has become an established fact. How much do you know about the cause of this matter?" "We're not very clear about the inside story. The World Tree was originally blocked by the three universal civilizations at the border of the flickering world, and the situation was very stable. However, the enemy suddenly launched a full-scale invasion. They must have used some method to obtain information about our territory, but we don't understand how they did it." The Star Arc leader frowned and shook his head. "I can tell you the inside story. This is not the World Tree's initiative, but someone deliberately leaked information about the explored universe and boldly colluded with the enemy. This kind of action is like opening the door of a country and inviting the World Tree in to burn, kill, and plunder." Han Zhao's tone sank. As soon as he said that, the faces of the upper echelons of the supercluster changed. Their eyes were filled with shock, horror, and disbelief. They were all shocked by this news. The Star Arc leader's eyes flashed with shock. He emphasized and confirmed again, "You mean there's a traitor in the Galactic Society?" "That's right," Han Zhao nodded slowly and said softly, "We are still investigating the identity of the traitor." Suddenly, there was a slight commotion in the room. Everyone whispered to each other and discussed spiritedly. The Star Arc civilization was also puzzled. To be able to successfully hand over the information to the World Tree, they must have decent technical strength. They actually chose to betray us in such a dangerous situation. What exactly are they planning, however? Halfway through his sentence, he suddenly paused, raised his eyes, and looked at the expressionless Han Zhao in bewilderment. The upper echelons also came back to their senses. They all guessed Han Zhao's true intentions, and their expressions changed. "Wait a minute," Black Star came to us at this time and deliberately brought up this topic. "Could it be that he thinks we are the traitors who leaked the information? Although our supercluster alliance has never been on good terms with the three universal civilizations and is the biggest suspect, this matter really has nothing to do with them. Are you suspecting us? The Star Arc leader's eyes widened. Han Shao looked around and did not answer directly. Instead, he summoned a virtual screen and said to himself, "According to what I found, the information I collected was collected. According to the information I've found, more than 10 years ago, you initiated a plan named Great Migration. The specific content was to take all the people and resources out of the explored universe and find another country while the war was going on. Only when the three universal civilizations and the world tree are in a stalemate will you have a chance." Halfway through his sentence, the expressions of the upper echelons of the Supercluster Alliance became even more solemn. They thought that this plan was rather secretive. Gathering the people and resources was nominally for the sake of war, but on the surface it was a reasonable motive. At most, they would think that they were leaving a way out for the sake of losing the war. Normally, they would not think that they were planning to run away. You already know. It's no wonder. With your abilities, as long as you're suspicious of us, it won't be difficult for you to find out. The Star Arc leader was shocked, but when he thought of Han Zhao's ability, he accepted reality and said helplessly, "So, you think we deliberately lured the World Tree into a full-scale invasion to disrupt the situation and make it easier to retreat? What do you think?" Han Shao tilted his head. Hearing this, everyone knew that Han Shao was probably here to denounce them, and they all felt a chill down their spines. The Star Arc leader clenched his teeth and said, "I know you think we have a motive, but we didn't do this. We're not traitors who leaked the information." Although they wanted to run, they did not want to become traitors. Otherwise, if they were targeted by the three universal civilizations, there would definitely be many twists and turns in the Great Migration plan. The three universal civilizations would definitely not allow a traitor like them to escape so easily. What evidence do you have to prove that you didn't do it? Han Zhao's tone was emotionless, so no one could tell his emotions. Hearing this, the Star Arc leader's thoughts raced, but his heart was in a mess. He could not think of any reason to prove that this matter had nothing to do with them. How much evidence did he need? However, before he could answer, Han Shao pressed on and continued. "Maybe you didn't mean it, but can you guarantee that it wasn't done by any of the civilizations here?" The Star Arc leader was stunned, and his expression changed. He knew that Han Shao was right. He could only guarantee that he was not a traitor, but he could not guarantee that the other supercluster civilizations did not have any tricks up their sleeve. He slowly turned his head, a questioning look in his eyes as he looked at the other alliance members. Everyone understood what he meant and began to speak. "It's not me, I didn't do it. It's not me either. I don't know anything about this." Very soon, the Star Arc leader's gaze turned to the last person. He remembered that during the meeting a while ago, it was this supercluster leader who had suggested helping the World Tree. He was the most suspicious. The leader of this civilization was furious. "What are you looking at me for? I didn't do it. We're all in this together. I won't ignore the collective interests of the Alliance." The Star Arc leader clenched his teeth and turned to look at Han Shao. "As you can see, this has nothing to do with us." Han Shao did not say anything. He only tilted his head and looked at the Star Arc leader with a strange expression. His expression seemed to be saying, "Are you kidding me?" Seeing this, the Star Arc leader shut his mouth and did not say anything. He also knew that no one would admit to it even if he asked them. If everyone denied it together, it would be ridiculous and not convincing at all. No one knew if the Alliance members were lying or not. However, the Star Arc leader was very clear. Whether it was the members of the supercluster or not, they could not admit it. Otherwise, they would be confirming their identity as traitors. Han Shao narrowed his eyes and said, "Don't say that I didn't remind you. I'll give you another chance. Are you sure you didn't do it?" The Star Arc leader was sweating a little, and he said anxiously, "Black Star, we can't produce any evidence for the time being, but we really didn't do it." "Alright, I believe you. I hope you don't come to a conclusion arbitrarily. If you keep staring at us, you will let the real traitor escape." The leader of the Star Arc subconsciously said halfway before he suddenly came back to himself. He subconsciously raised his voice and said in surprise, "Wait, you believe me?" He had been racking his brains and preparing to persuade Han Xiao, but he did not expect Han Xiao to change his mind before he could do anything. This made him a little stunned, as if he had stepped on thin air. However, at this moment, Han Xiao spoke again and slowly said, "However, it's useless for me to believe you. I need the 3 universal civilizations to believe me. You have to think of a way to prove your innocence." "You mean, of course we'll stay and fight hard." Han Xiao spread his hands and said, "Think about it. Right now, the 3 universal civilizations are suspecting traitors. Once you leave, you'll be confirming your identity as traitors. The only way is to give up on your so-called migration plan and focus on fighting the World Tree. Only then can you clear your suspicion." Hearing this, the eyes of the leaders of the supercluster civilizations narrowed. The Star Arc leader frowned and stopped panicking. He slowly said, "Your Excellency Black Star, I'm afraid this is your real purpose for coming, right?" He was not really an idiot, and he immediately realized the real purpose of Han Zhao's trip. There were priorities. The Supercluster Alliance did not want to become a traitor, but the migration plan was more important. They would not give up on the migration just to prove that they were not traitors. The Star Arc leader even suspected that the so-called traitor was just an excuse Han Xiao came up with to threaten them after finding out about their migration plan. Han Xiao did not mind. He chuckled and said casually, "Hee, I know what you're thinking. Traitors do exist, and it's also true that the 3 universal civilizations suspect you. However, I didn't think the traitor was you from the beginning." "Why do you think so?" The Star Arc leader was curious. "We've known each other for decades. I know the style of your decision-making team quite well. Furthermore, with your situation, the possibility of you daring to collude with the enemy is not high. However, due to your past history, you guys are the most suspicious. This is very much like a framing. My intuition tells me that this matter has little to do with you guys. Of course, this does not mean that you are not suspicious. I can't be sure if you did the opposite." Han Xiao did not intend to remove all the pressure from the supercluster. Therefore, he did not reveal the third party exposed by Bold Explorer. He only inferred that their suspicion was limited. In fact, Han Xiao knew that the Superstar Cluster Alliance would not give up on the migration plan so easily, so he planned to have an open and honest chat with them. Initially, he used the suspicion of being a traitor as an excuse and pretended to be questioning them to gain the upper hand, making the Superstar Cluster Alliance nervous and understand the situation. "It seems like even though the good situation has been destroyed, you still maintained your rationality and did not let your anger get to your head." The Star Arc leader had mixed feelings. He nodded and said, "I really don't know about the traitor, but it's impossible for us to give up on the migration plan and stay to fight. Since you've found the information, you should know the significance of this plan to us." Han Xiao nodded and said, "The existence of the 3 universal civilizations has limited the upper limit of your development. For many years, they have been using all kinds of excuses to suppress you and prevent you from entering the era of technological explosion. The top talents and resources of the Galactic Society have all flowed into their pocket. As they continue to accumulate, the gap between you guys is getting bigger and bigger." "That's right. Back then, when the Exploration Era War had just ended, the 3 universal civilizations had established order, but they did not have the strength to beat all the civilizations back then. But now? After so many years, they have enjoyed the top resources and the greatest development dividend of the entire galactic society. There is already a generation gap between our technology. We still have some ability to resist now, but the longer this goes on, the bigger the gap will be. Sooner or later, we will completely lose the right to challenge the three universal civilizations. At that time, we can only become their vassals. A supercluster leader said with a helpless tone. The Star Arc leader nodded and added, "It's precisely because we have seen the distant future that we have to take advantage of the fact that we can still resist and look for opportunities to change our fate." The flickering world was an attempt, but it failed. The migration now is a better opportunity. We will not give up. I understand your request, really, but with all due respect, what you're doing is just a slow death. What you think is only on the surface, and you think that you will be safe once you leave the war zone. In fact, you have no way to escape. After the World Tree kills the three universal civilizations, they will definitely find you. They have extraordinary abilities in the information form. Han Shao explained the information form ability of the World Tree to track its prey in detail, ensuring that everyone present knew the real situation. Then, he paused and continued. After a pause, he continued, "Therefore, your only way out is to stay and destroy the World Tree civilization with us. This is a very simple choice. This way, your development might not be free enough, but at least your civilization can continue." The many super-star cluster leaders looked at each other and discussed in low voices, not entirely convinced. The Star Arc leader pondered for a while before slowly saying, "You've put in a lot of effort to get us to send our troops to the battlefield. You even personally acted as a lobbyist. Let's assume that what you said is true, but I have a concern that I need your answer. Speak. Will the three universal civilizations let us off so easily?" The Star Arc leader leaned forward and asked, "Let me make it clearer. If we defeat the World Tree and win back peace, how can you guarantee that the three universal civilizations won't settle the score afterward? How can you guarantee that they won't label us as traitors again and attack us?" Everyone stared at Han Shao with oppressive gazes. This was not the first time the three universal civilizations had used groundless tricks on them, so the Supercluster Alliance did not have any hope of clearing their names. Whether they were traitors or not depended on what the three universal civilizations said. If they were accused of colluding with the enemy after the incident, there would be almost no way for them to turn things around. They might even be wiped out. Regarding this, Han Shao stroked his chin and said calmly, "If we win this battle and you guys don't migrate, I can stand on your side and prevent the three universal civilizations from using such methods. Furthermore, I'll try my best to help you break the long-term restrictions of the three universal civilizations so that you guys don't have to abandon your homeland and can still have the chance to develop freely." "You?" The Star Arc leader narrowed his eyes. "You might have such an influence, but why are you doing this? Don't forget, war is a great reshuffle. The situation after the war will definitely be overturned. The three universal civilizations are rarely weak and have lost their grip on us. This is the best time to change. Also, helping you guys is also helping myself. Without the invasion of external enemies, we're all thorns in the eyes of the three universal civilizations. We have a lot of room for cooperation," Han Shao said slowly. The Star Arc leader remained unmoved and said indifferently, "Sounds good, but how can you guarantee that you won't go back on your word like before? You have to know that your reputation is not very good." "I don't need to promise anyone." Han Shao did not reply at all. He casually said, "I'm just telling you which path is dead and which path is alive. I'm helping you analyze the pros and cons and providing you with a better choice. However, I can't make decisions for you." "What if we don't accept your suggestion?" The Star Arc leader's tone was solemn. "If you guys insist on going your own way, I'll express my regret. Without the armed forces of the supercluster, the pressure on us will be greater, and the losses will be more exaggerated. However, our chances of winning are still very high. Han Xiao stroked his chin, paused, and said softly, "As for you guys, as for you, do I need to tell you what will happen to deserters like you? With me here, you can find me no matter how far you run. Don't blame me when the time comes. I've given you guys a chance." Everyone's expressions changed. They could hear the blatant threat. Black Star, one of the leaders of the Moto civilization, shouted angrily, "We know that you're very strong. No one might be your match in terms of individual strength, but do you think you're really invincible after entering the Transcendent grade? Do you think you can influence the joint decision of so many civilizations with just your words alone?" Han Xiao shook his head and said frankly, "No, there's no such thing as true invincibility in the world. The so-called invincibility is only invincibility in the current technological environment, and the world is developing dynamically. As the times change and civilizations progress, there will always be more new technologies. Maybe one day, the principles of all the space wonders will be discovered, and the transcendent grade will no longer be unsolvable. It's even possible to create beyond grade as and transcendent grade supers in batches. The individual achievements that seem unbelievable right now will eventually be replicated by the collective civilization and produce fission." Everyone was stunned. They had thought that Han Xiao would refute, but they did not expect him to agree with this statement. For a moment, they did not know how to respond. They thought that Han Xiao was trying to ease the atmosphere and take back his threat. However, the next moment they knew that they were wrong. Han Xiao looked at everyone and said coldly, "But that's all in the distant future. But those are all things that can only happen in the future. At least in the foreseeable future. I am an existence that can't be solved. You can treat my words as a threat or an ultimatum. In any case, take care of yourself. Don't make a choice that disappoints me. Otherwise, I don't mind destroying the civilizations of everyone here. At that time, you will know that I'm more dangerous than the World Tree." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone in the room fell silent. After a while, the Star Arc leader seemed to have made a decision. "If the situation is as you said, we can temporarily put aside the migration plan and send more troops to participate in the battle. However, if the losses are too great, we will definitely migrate and evacuate. It's useless no matter how much you threaten us." Han Zhao's expression returned to normal, and he nodded. "That's enough. I hope you don't go back on your word. I'll keep an eye on you." Chapter 1448. In the shallow layer dimensional base. Han Xiao turned off the communicator and deactivated the remote projection. He rubbed his brows and closed his eyes for a while before opening them again. The supercluster has reached a consensus. They won't cause any trouble for the time being. Han Xiao secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He was more or less tired. He reasoned with them, analyzed the situation, and coerced them. In the end, after much persuasion, he finally managed to persuade this group of people who wanted to run away at the last minute to come back. Of course, this was only a temporary consensus. The Supercluster Alliance did not agree to give up on migrating. They were only willing to stay and observe for a while and increase their support. However, this was enough. If the Supercluster Alliance did not give him face and ran away, even if he could make the Supercluster Alliance pay the price later, he would not be able to stop the negative chain reaction in the war. Now, the armed forces of the explored universe were not lacking, and an internal division had temporarily disappeared before it erupted. The Supercluster Alliance would not become a traitor for the time being. Damn it, I'm indeed the one in charge of the Galactic Society. I'm so worried. Han Xiao shook his head and opened the real-time military star map of the explored universe. Regions appeared in front of him in blue, and inside the star fields, green spots were appearing and expanding at an extremely slow speed. This represented the range of the World Tree's invasion. The World Tree is coming aggressively, but the three universal civilizations have such a large territory. Even if the World Tree blossoms, it will have to slowly invade. Although the battle is intense, the threat in the short term is still maintained at a relatively low level. Han Zhao's eyes flickered as he analyzed. The sudden change in the situation would more or less affect their mentality. The three universal civilizations were a little flustered, but Han Zhao still maintained his composure. He ignored the anxiety of his territory being devoured and calmly judged the situation. After all, he had seen worse situations in his previous life, so this small scene could not scare him. No matter how powerful the World Tree was, it had to slowly devour them. It was impossible for them to become fat in one bite. Furthermore, the Galactic Alliance army resisted fiercely, making their eating very difficult. In comparison, Han Zhao felt that the greatest effect of the World Tree's full-scale invasion was firstly, it would affect the morale of the Galactic Society, and secondly, it would affect their resource production and productivity. According to the leaked information and his experience in his previous life, Han Zhao could guess that the World Tree's priority targets would be the military factories and resource planets of the various organizations. This would reduce the speed of the three universal civilizations' troop. Secondly, it was the mother planets of some star system or star cluster civilizations, the ruling planets, and the refugee planets with a large population. Using this method to cause panic and internal chaos in the Galactic Society, the World Tree had invaded many civilizations and was very clear about this. Then there were the important bases of some beyond grade A races and private organizations, cutting off the wings of the three universal civilizations. Of course, as the core of the Galactic Society, the Central Galaxy was the most important target. However, Han Zhao guessed that the World Tree would most likely not attack it for the time being because the Central Galaxy would definitely be heavily guarded. Once they invaded, a large group battle would break out. This would be similar to a border war. The World Tree now had many spatial coordinates. With such an advantage, it should not be willing to continue the inefficient head-on battle. Instead, it chose to avoid the main force and attack the weak point. It mainly focused on harassing and nibbling away, displaying its high mobility and advantage of fighting. These places are all areas that need to be protected. After this battle, who knows how many more desolate universe belts will appear? Unfortunately, the World Tree's mechanism is too perverted. Otherwise, I would have been able to give them a taste of their own medicine. Han Zhao was a little helpless. With his individual combat strength, he could have gone to the World Tree territory to cause trouble. However, more than 10 years ago, he had learned a lot of information from the experts of the World Tree race. The World Tree's base could be retracted into its body at any time, so it would not be of much use to harass it. They could just change places. This would not affect the enemy's productivity much because the World Tree itself was the largest weapon factory. It directly converted resources internally and did not need to build countless factories like normal civilizations. Otherwise, Han Zhao would not have thought that it was a complementary target for virtual creation, pseudo. Furthermore, the blessed race of the World Tree would definitely be eyeing the pivotal snake. Han Zhao did not want to leave the shallow dimension either. Even if he supported the main universe, he would only send out a portion of the mechanical oracles. His main body would still stay in the secondary dimension to guard. The World Tree was not willing to wait for death. While invading the three universal civilizations' territory, it would not give up on dealing with the pivotal snake. He did not know what the other party was planning, so he had to be careful. However, although it's not very useful, it's not bad to cause trouble for them. With my current strength, I don't have to worry about being attacked on a large scale like before. If they fight me head-on, wouldn't that be beautiful? Han Zhao thought about it and felt that it was worth a try. Arcane Church, Temple of the Gods. Wernos slowly walked in the corridor formed by tall statues of various shapes and sizes, holding a handful of spiritual lights in his hand. Every time he walked in front of a statue, he would use the corresponding simple ceremony to worship it unhurriedly. Then, he would flick the spiritual light into the statue's body. It looked like he was feeding a pet or baiting a school of fish. This was his daily ritual. Usually, he was alone, but today there were a bunch of tails behind him. A group of ethereal upper echelons in priest robes and officer uniforms followed behind him. They looked anxious and lowered their voices. Chief Priest, now that the World Tree is invading, our high-level combatants are not enough. I hope you can help. Aren't you afraid that I'll sacrifice myself on the battlefield and drop the country weapon? Wernos said casually without looking back. Of course we don't want to take the risk. We didn't ask you to help during the border war and the invasion of the secondary dimensions. It's just that the situation this time is urgent, and we need you to use some of your god clones to help. An officer said in a low voice. This request was very normal. In the past, Wernos would basically agree, but now, he was acting abnormally. I refuse. Wernos shook his head. Why? I'm only one step away from the transcendent grade. I can obtain an opportunity to advance at any time. I need to maintain my best condition at all times so that I don't miss the opportunity. As long as we don't attack the mother planet of the Arcane Church, don't look for me for anything else. I don't want to waste my strength elsewhere, Wernos said casually. But the other direct descendants are fighting a bloody battle. Isn't it a little? You don't understand. Whether or not I can advance to the transcendent grade is more important than these battles. This is the independence that the Pope personally granted me. I have the right to decide whether I want to participate or not. Wernos waved his hand casually. Stop pestering me here. Go back. The group looked at each other, gritted their teeth, and left with dissatisfaction and depression. Wernos did not care. The last time he failed to advance, causing him to be severely injured, but there was also an unexpected benefit. The ethereal Pope saw that he indeed had the possibility of advancing at any time, so he simply allowed him to decide when to participate in the battle and not listen to the announcement. Therefore, in the past 10 years, Wernos had not participated in the battle, nor had he tried to advance rashly. He had been recuperating and reflecting on why he had failed. Wernos always felt that he was missing some key element. He had been searching for them until now, but he had not gained anything. He had vaguely discovered the mysterious ability hidden in his body, but it had not been fully activated. It seemed like he could sense something unknown, and his intuition told him that this feeling was very important for his advancement. When I figure out what's going on, I should be able to step into the power of the transcendent grade. Perhaps this is the secret of Black Star's advancement. I won't fail again this time, right? Wernos' eyes flashed. Somewhere in the endless nebula, two fleets were fighting fiercely. One side was the World Tree invaders, and the other side was the Black Star Corps. A large number of charge cabins bit onto the World Tree spaceships, transporting batches of army players to board the spaceship. The World Tree battleships fell from the inside one after another, and many Calamity-grade players wore mechanical suits and roamed the battlefield. Due to the sudden change in the situation, the combat missions of the players also changed. From guarding the border, they suddenly went to different areas to stop the World Tree invaders. The mission format was much richer. The border defense circle of the flickering world had almost transformed into a teleportation station. The multidimensional sky-opening transportation devices operated non-stop, sending batches of players to the various star field. Version 5.5 had unlocked a new level cap. Now, more players had entered the Calamity grade, and their combat strength had undergone a qualitative change. The lethality of a Calamity grade who did not fear death was naturally not to be underestimated. Furthermore, it was a large group of them. Although the World Tree also had many calamity-grade supers, they could not create as many as the players. Everyone could revive, but the World Tree's revival interval was longer, and it had to appear in the Mother Tree's body. It could not revive on the spot like the players, and its effect could not be compared at all. It was equivalent to the player's true strength being several times what it looked like on the surface. Both sides were immortals, and the battle was quite intense. However, the outcome was obvious, and the World Tree warriors were forced to retreat. This group of immortals is too scary. With so many calamity grades as a suicide squad, only the main elites can contend against them. We can't hold on at all. In the flagship of this World Tree invader, the commander clicked his tongue in wonder. Ever since the World Tree obtained the information of the 3 universal civilizations, this information had been shared in the mental network. From the Tree Kings to the basic soldiers, they all understood the division of supers in the 3 universal civilizations, as well as the strange existences such as the immortals. The adjutant muttered, "There seems to be a limit to the revival of these immortals. If we kill them many times in a short period of time, they won't be able to revive for a certain period of time." The commander muttered, "I wonder what kind of existence this is. What kind of power does their revival come from?" The adjutant shrugged and said, "Maybe they have a World Tree too. Who knows?" A few days later, somewhere in the World Tree territory, a wormhole slowly opened and spat out a mechanical body. It was Han Zhao's Lord's avatar. Han Zhao twisted his neck and activated the self-examination of his body. The outer armor opened and closed like scales, revealing fine gaps. He felt the exquisite feeling of the mechanical body and let out a comfortable groan. Because of energy base god of all machines, the transcendent grade Lord's descent had improved his perception. When the beyond grade A Lord descended, there was still a barrier between his perception and the Lord's body. Although he could control it like an arm, he could clearly recognize that it was not his own body. Now that the Lord had descended, the Lord's avatar felt no different from the main body. It did not feel like a mechanical avatar, but like an additional main body, smoother and more exquisite. If one had to give an example, the Lord's descent of a beyond grade A was like a remote control in virtual reality. It was very real, but he knew in his heart that it was fake. As for the Lord's descent of a transcendent, it felt like he had been reborn again. It feels good. The power of the doppelganger has reached more than 94%. Not bad. Han Zhao clenched his fists and clearly sensed the rhythm of every alloy, every component, and every biochemical tendon in his body. He nodded in satisfaction and looked up at the stars in the World Tree territory. Lightning flashed in his eyes. "More than 10 years ago, I was severely injured by you guys and almost died in your base camp. Now is the right time to settle the score with you guys." Chapter 1449. Unexpected discovery. The Mech Legion swarmed out like a black tide and connected together layer by layer, covering the Lord's avatar. They quickly combined and turned into an enormous mechanical deity that spanned across the starry sky. Han Zhao controlled the enormous supreme heavenly venerate's mechanical body and cruised through the galaxy of the World Tree territory, heading toward the starry sky. Not long after, a planet wrapped in roots appeared in his vision, getting closer and closer. Without another word, Han Zhao raised his palm, and a strong psionic light appeared in his palm. The next moment, a thick pillar of light shot out and pierced through the planet like a spear of light, like a steel needle piercing through a meatball. A hole was left on the surface of the planet, and the internal structure was exposed. The crust, the asthenosphere, and the core were clearly separated like a multi-layered cake. After a moment of stagnation, the planet suddenly collapsed inward toward the gap. The crust shattered and turned into molten lava. The asthenosphere surged violently. The brightness of the planet's core suddenly increased, and a strong light burst out from the center. The next moment there was a loud explosion. The entire planet exploded and turned into an expanding mass of light. Han Zhao's body did not move. The shield automatically blocked the strong shockwave of the planet's explosion. The electric arcs flickered without any damage, as if there were layers of energy hurricanes surrounding him. This time, he was here to cause destruction. He did not need to be as careful as he was more than 10 years ago. What he needed was to make a big fuss. The next moment, the information form alert network was immediately triggered. Not long after, the entire World Tree civilization knew that Han Xiao had suddenly appeared and blown up a planet. Before Han Xiao could go far, the surrounding space fluctuated. Batches of World Tree fleets arrived at the area of the incident through the World Tree Express and fired at the planet-sized Supreme Heavenly Venerate without hesitation. The dense rain of light bombarded the Supreme Heavenly Venerate's shield. However, the thunder was loud but the rain was small. It could only cause large amounts of energy sparks and could not break the indestructible shield. Han Xiao raised his hand and clenched it. Energy surged, and he crushed battleships one after another. Although he was surrounded by the fleet, it was as if he had surrounded all the enemies. Very soon, more World Tree fleets arrived at the battlefield through the World Tree territory's rapid descent channel and joined the battle. More and more battleships surrounded Han Xiao and focused their fire on him. On the other side, in the Tree King Palace, the Ancestral Tree King and the Fortitude Tree King were paying attention to Han Zhao's actions through the mental network with solemn expressions. Why did this guy suddenly come here? Fortitude Tree King was surprised. Don't tell me he wants to counterattack our territory alone? It looks like it. The Ancestral Tree King narrowed his eyes. Should we stop it? The Ancestral Tree King shook his head firmly. There's no need. He's very difficult to deal with. The efficiency of the human wave tactic is very low. If we want to stop him, we don't know how many troops we have to invest. We also have to let a portion of the invading troops return as reinforcements. That's exactly what he wants. Then what should we do? Are we just going to watch him wreak havoc in our territory? Since we can't stop it, we won't stop it. Let the Mother Tree keep the territory and change the base. We'll leave this place to him. The Ancestral Tree King was resolute and did not hesitate. Actually, there was another way, which was to use the Tree God's descent to fight against a transcendent. However, after the last time they fought, the Ancestral Tree King felt that the incomplete Tree God's descent would not be able to defeat Black Star, so he did not waste the number of times he could use it and left. Due to the connection of the mental network and the unique Mother Tree mechanism, the World Tree civilization had a huge advantage, which was its ability to execute. As soon as the Ancestral Tree King gave the order, the huge World Tree territory immediately started to change. The intertwined roots of the World Tree vaguely appeared in the starry sky, slowly moving as if they were uprooted one after another. The land that carried the World Tree was the universe space within the territory. Usually, these roots were hidden, but now they appeared one after another. The planets turned into liquid and fused into the roots of the World Tree. The roots of the World Tree also retracted, and the spatial cracks outside the planet disappeared. For a moment, countless starlights dimmed until they dissipated. The originally bustling galaxy slowly turned into a dead and desolate universe. As the World Tree retracted the planets, the star field here was quickly returning to its original state. It was desolate, cold, and dark. Not a single blade of grass grew. Han Xiao, who was slaughtering the World Tree fleet, also noticed the abnormal changes in space. This was the first time he had seen the World Tree move its base. When he saw the World Tree roots appear in the sky, he started to exit the rooted state. Are you planning to move as soon as you see me? How decisive. Han Xiao was surprised. Without the rooted state, the World Tree Express could not be used. The World Tree fleet received the order and immediately ended the siege. They took advantage of the last moment to quickly teleport out, planning to retreat. Han Xiao crushed another fleet. Suddenly, he activated the Tree God's character summon card. Swoosh! The next moment, spatial cracks suddenly tore open around the supreme heavenly venerate. Roots suddenly shot out and swept through the fleet, swallowing batches of battleship. The roots he summoned with the character summon card flowed with blue light, completely different from the green world tree's main body. How can he use the power of the world tree? The ancestral tree king had been paying attention, and when he saw this, he was stunned. Could Black Star be a member of the world tree? Is he also one of us? That's not right. How is that possible? At the same time, the mother tree's consciousness also reacted. The ancestral tree king sensed surprise from it. The world tree itself was also stunned. It was surprised that a life form that was not under its control had the same power as it. Han Xiao was controlling the summoned roots to attack the fleet. He felt that it was very novel and interesting. Suddenly, he had a lot of tentacles, and he finally experienced the joy of the Tree King. At this moment, a mental fluctuation suddenly came, bringing with it the ancestral Tree King's shocked question. Black Star, how do you have the power of the World Tree? Yes. Han Xiao could not help but raise his brows. He had activated this character summon card on a whim, mainly to experiment if the roots he had summoned were connected to the World Tree. After the experiment just now, he had already confirmed that the roots formed by the character summon card belonged to him and would not be controlled by the World Tree. It was like a rootless tree that was born out of thin air. Even if it devoured matter, it could only decompose it into energy to replenish its own consumption. It was not like the World Tree could preserve information states and transform them. When the time limit of the character summon card ended, these temporarily summoned roots would dissipate on their own, and so would the things they devoured during this period. However, in the eyes of outsiders, these blue roots were extremely similar to the World Tree with him as the source, but they were independent entities. This made the ancestral Tree King's imagination run wild. At this moment, information about the revivers of the explored universe, the immortals, and so on flashed through his mind. The ancestral Tree King's eyes widened as he felt that he had found the truth. I understand. There's actually another world tree in the universe, and it's on you. The information leaked by the Star Alliance included Han Zhao's life. The ancestral Tree King had always been surprised by how short Han Zhao's rise was. At this moment, he felt enlightened and found an explanation. The undying characteristics of those immortals were very similar to the members of the World Tree. If those immortals were actually members of another World Tree, it would make sense. Black Star had always been pretending that he had nothing to do with it, but he was actually secretly making a fortune. He was the mastermind. 2 World Trees? You sure dare to dream. Han Xiao could not help but laugh at the ancestral Tree King's imagination. He was about to continue speaking, but at this moment, many spatial tunnels suddenly appeared around him. Green roots of the World Tree extended out and wrapped around Han Zhao's blue root. They were like snakes entangled together, twisting into a fried dough twist. They slowly squirmed, squeezing, pulling, and sticking to each other. Seeing this, Han Xiao paused, and his expression became strange. Why did this scene look so much like a French kiss? It was a little spicy. The corner of Han Zhao's eyes twitched. He could even feel the emotions of the World Tree from the intersection of the root. It was an extremely fervent and eager thought, containing the desire to fuse with it. Waves of genuine World Tree power flowed into the blue roots along the intersection of the root. It was actively transmitting its own energy, as if it could not wait to share the good stuff. Furthermore, the World Tree was even connecting with the power contained in the blue roots, as if it wanted to achieve some kind of special body fluid exchange. Is it treating the roots I called out as its mate? Han Zhao's eyes widened in shock. He had thought that the real-world tree would be hostile to each other when it saw the blue version of him. He did not expect that not only did they not fight, but the world tree even took the initiative to communicate with him. It did not have any hostility at all and was even very warm. Could it be that this was because the real-world tree had always been a unique existence and was lonely? Now that it had finally found someone of its own kind, its mating habits were ignited. Its hunger and thirst were unbearable, and its instincts took over? The ancients did not lie to me. There can't be two tigers on one mountain, unless one is male and one is female. Han Zhao's interest was piqued. On the other side, the ancestral Tree King was completely dumbfounded. As the Tree King, he could feel the joy and excitement coming from the Mother Tree's consciousness. Even the way he looked at Han Zhao was affected. Han Zhao, who was supposed to be an enemy, actually became friendly in his eyes, and he could not feel any hostility. F***ck, we were about to fight to the death. Why did your Majesty surrender first? The ancestral Tree King quickly shook his head to get rid of the indirect influence of the Mother Tree's consciousness. What's going on? Han Zhao came back to his senses, chuckled, and said in a teasing tone, Didn't you say that there are two world trees? Mine is male and yours is female. Your female won't work when it sees my male. The ancestral Tree King was furious. Bullsh**t. Why does the female not work when she sees the male? Shouldn't it be the other way around? Wow, I didn't expect you to be such an outstanding fist artist. Han Zhao was speechless. He turned his head to look at the blue and green roots that were tangling with each other, and suddenly chuckled. This is too proactive. By the way, your mother tree is amazing. Although the ancestral Tree King did not understand Han Zhao's teasing, he knew that it was not a good thing. He felt an inexplicable sourness, and the green light on his body seemed to have become even brighter. He deactivated the mental communication and suppressed his anger. With a dark expression, he ordered the troops to retreat faster. Not long after, the World Tree finally retracted its base camp. The fleet that surrounded Han Zhao either died or fled, and the World Tree roots that were crazily looking for a mate also reluctantly retracted into the spatial tunnel. No matter how it teased, the blue roots that Han Zhao summoned with the character summon card did not respond. In reality, it was because the blue roots were a temporary rootless tree. It was a real, castrated version of an ability that was completely under Han Zhao's control. It did not have any self-consciousness and did not have such abilities. Not long after, the time of the Tree God character summon card was up. The blue roots shattered inch by inch, turning into light fragments and dissipating. Only the supreme heavenly venerate was left floating in the desolate universe. The World Tree had already abandoned its territory, and all the planets and individuals had returned to the Mother Tree. It was as if it was so scared by Han Zhao that it did not even want its base camp and moved overnight. The truth was more or less the same. Just one word, grandeur. Tsk, unknowingly, my deterrence has already become so strong. Han Zhao shook his head and chuckled. If it were anyone else, they would most likely not be able to swallow their pride and run away. It was impossible for such a large civilization to be scared by him to the point of abandoning their home. At the very least, they would send out enough troops to fight a big battle until they suffered heavy casualties and felt that they could not hold on anymore. Only then would they have a reasonable reason to retreat. However, the World Tree did not care about this kind of thing. It left as soon as it said so. It did not feel embarrassed at all. He had not even used it yet. This kind of enemy was the most difficult to deal with. Although forcing the World Tree to move can slightly cause them some trouble, it can't solve the root cause. However, this trip was not a loss. I seem to have discovered something interesting. Han Zhao revealed a playful smile. He did not expect the Tree God character summon card to have such a wonderful effect. Now that I've used it once for an experiment, there are still 3 uses left for this character summon card. It might have a miraculous effect at the right time. Thank you and Tianfu for your reward. End of chapter. Chapter 1450. The World Tree moved overnight, so the idea of causing a ruckus naturally fell through. Han Xiao left behind a batch of mechanical troops in this star field that had regained its emptiness before retracting his lord's avatar. With the World Tree's mechanism, as long as it was not interfered with, their base camp could be built in any area of the universe. They had destroyed many civilizations over the years and had the coordinates of many areas. They could just find a place that they had already turned into a desolate universe belt and move there. The migration process had a certain impact on their invasion at the front line, causing a slight gap in support. Han Xiao told the 3 universal civilizations about this. After learning that the World Tree was scared by Han Xiao alone, the 3 leaders were shocked and ordered the Strategic Command Center to make the corresponding adjustments. The flames of war raged throughout the explored universe, and more than a month passed quickly. Under the attacks of the Galactic Alliance Army, the first wave of the World Tree's invasion finally stopped. Although the World Tree's arrival was fierce and caused quite a bit of panic in the Galactic Society, in terms of actual benefits, the first wave of the World Tree's invasion did not cause much damage. Most of the invading teams were intercepted by the Galactic Alliance Army. Although they had devoured some planets, this number was just a drop in the ocean to the entire explored universe. Furthermore, they were scattered everywhere. Although the 3 universal civilizations did not have powerful defensive equipment like the Information Form Warning Network and the World Tree Express, the multidimensional sky-opening transportation device was also sharp, allowing the Galactic Alliance Army to have extremely strong military mobility. As long as they discovered an invader somewhere, they could instantly send reinforcements. If it were any other civilization, they would be extremely passive in the face of the World Tree's unpredictable harassment and invasion. This was the war of attrition that the World Tree was good at, and the technology of the 3 universal civilizations countered the World Tree's usual tactics, preventing it from achieving the best effect. Of course, although the first wave of the World Tree's invasion was repelled, there were still many World Tree fleets left in the Galactic Society. Was this the weakness of the 3 universal civilizations? Did they not have a sharp enough monitoring device? Although the reinforcements were very fast, as long as the World Tree fleet hid and did not appear, it was very difficult for them to lock onto the enemy in their territory. After resolving the current emergency, the upper echelons of the Galactic Alliance Army invited the various officers and the upper echelons of the Beyond Grade A Association to hold a strategy meeting to analyze and summarize the current situation. They discussed the follow-up actions. Although the traitor leaked the information, causing the World Tree to invade the entire territory, but our situation is not as bad as we thought it would be. The vast territory and the extremely fast speed of reinforcements are the 2 things we rely on to maintain the situation. They have already played an important role in the war. Tenny pointed at the 3D star map on the table and summarized the current situation. Many participants had the same star map model floating in front of them, displaying the current strategic deployment. According to the statistics, most of the targets of the World Tree invasion are military facilities, resource planets, civilization mother planets, and beyond Grade A territories. From this, it can be seen that the World Tree's primary strategic intention is to destroy our productivity and social stability. However, at present, the World Tree has not succeeded many times. We have already secretly moved important facilities in the early years. Some of the information leaked by the traitor is outdated. Tenny spoke frankly. The Star Alliance observers were too low-key, so they could only obtain general information from the internet. Therefore, the information was lagging behind. Therefore, some confidential information of an advanced civilization? The Star Alliance observers naturally had no way of knowing. The most valuable information they had leaked to the World Tree? It was still a star map and space coordinate. Does this mean that the traitor's status is not high? An officer asked. Not necessarily, maybe it's just a disguise, another person retorted. Tenny interrupted them, coughed dryly. He said, cough? As for the traitor, we have other people in charge. We don't need to discuss this matter. Let's get back to the main topic. Our intercepting efficiency is not bad, and it's all thanks to the support of His Excellency Black Star and the Beyond Grade A Association. Otherwise, the high-level combatants of the World Tree would have been able to wreak havoc for a long time. Hearing this, the officers turned around and nodded at the representatives of the Beyond Grade A Association, sending out a friendly signal. Han Shao nodded and said, "This time, we have annihilated many World Tree experts. They will need at least a year or two to make a comeback." His mechanical oracles had cooperated with the Beyond Grade as of the association, the direct descendants, and the Holy Covenant to eliminate a large number of high-level combatants of the World Tree. They had sent at least 200 to 300 people to be watered and would not be able to return anytime soon. Some of the foreign experts encountered Han Zhao's Lord's avatar and were hit by virtual purification restore. They self-destructed on the spot and turned into fireworks. Other than dying in battle, there were also some high-level combatants of the World Tree that were used by Han Shao to test the effect of information form obliteration, or sealed by the spacetime amber to become his collection. There were about 30 of them. The World Tree had permanently lost these powerful individuals and could no longer revive. It could be considered a loss. Due to the division of the battlefront, some Beyond Grade, as on the 3 Universal Civilizations side, had also died. They were listed on the Soul Comfort Monument set up by the 3 Universal Civilizations and recorded a new number of death. Tenny then turned to look at Manison and said with a deep voice, "The mechanical race's territory was also the focus of the invasion this time. We did not arrive in time to provide reinforcements. Fortunately, Your Excellency the Mecha Empire repelled the enemy. I apologize to you here. It's just a small matter. It's not worth mentioning." Manison waved his hand and said calmly. Everyone had a strange expression. Manison was one of them. He had hidden an extremely large armed mech legion in the mechanical race's territory. He did not need the support of the Galactic Alliance army and destroyed the World Tree invaders on his own. The strength he displayed was shocking. Although Manison was no longer the face of the mechanic class, the wealth he had accumulated over the years was not just for show. Among the Beyond Grade he still had a lot of weight. This time, an officer suddenly said thoughtfully, "Speaking of which, the Supercluster Alliance also contributed a lot this time. They sent a large number of troops to provide support. Speaking of which, I thought of something abnormal. The World Tree's invasion seemed to have deliberately avoided the territory of the Supercluster Alliance and only harassed them on a small scale. That's why the Supercluster was able to help. It's indeed a little strange." The officers had strange expressions. In their eyes, the World Tree did not treat the Supercluster Alliance as an invader, which was a little strange. For some reason, it gave them a feeling that they were in cahoots with each other. The suspicion of being a traitor was not small. However, the Supercluster Alliance did not just stand by and watch. Instead, they took the initiative to provide support to the Galactic Alliance army. This was another good action, which confused many of the upper echelons of the military. The Supercluster Alliance did this to fulfill their agreement with Han Shao. If they did not take the initiative to provide support, the 3 Universal Civilizations would have been even more suspicious of them. Now they were more confused than doubtful, and there were no signs of internal strife for the time being. Listening to everyone's discussion, Han Zhao's expression remained the same. He had persuaded the Superstar Cluster Alliance and barely suppressed the intensification of the internal suspicions. However, he did not intend to say it out loud, hiding his achievements and fame. At this time, Commander Simon took over the conversation and stopped the discussion in this regard. He pulled back to the main topic and said, "Currently, there are two problems that we need to pay attention to. One is to clean up the hibernating World Tree invaders. Most of their troops have been chased away, but there are still a small number of troops left in the territory. This is a hidden danger, and it has put quite a bit of mental pressure on the Galactic Society. What do you all think?" The three universal civilizations had resolved the first wave of invasion, but the aftereffects were serious. Because the World Tree had suddenly crossed the defense line, the people were panicking and chaos broke out everywhere. The three universal civilizations had no choice but to spend more effort to deal with the refugees. In this regard, the three universal civilizations were no different from normal civilizations. After all, the World Tree's social system that had almost no internal friction was in the minority. After some discussion, the result was nothing more than to strengthen the military control of wartime policies. Now was not the time to talk about freedom. Seeing this, Simon continued, "Also, we have to figure out the World Tree's next move and make some preparations in advance. They did not invade the central galaxy this time, but they will make their move sooner or later. They need to race against time more than us, so they won't be able to wait for long." A group of military upper echelons started discussing this topic. Han Xiao and the others did not participate and just listened silently from the side. After discussing for a while, the military finally came to a consensus. The meeting ended for the time being, and the participants passed down the order. Secondary Dimension World, World Tree Blessed Race Territory. Tree roots intertwined to form a spiral-shaped tower that stood at the center of the land. Around it were buildings formed from giant trees, forming a tree city where countless clan members lived and prospered. Spatial rifts would open from time to time, and battleships of the blessed race would come and go. Two figures floated in the blue-green sky, looking down at the tree city below. One was the ancestral Tree King, and the other was a female figure wearing a gorgeous robe. Her skin was like tender leaves, glowing with a green light. Her long white hair draped behind her back, and there was a complicated and mysterious mark on her forehead. This person was one of the 13 ancestral spirits, and her name was Haleen. "Your Excellency Tree King, why are you looking for me?" "I have a mission for you." "The secret Tree King won't be able to return. His crown needs a new owner, and we also need a new Tree King. Are you interested?" Hearing this, Haleen could not help but turn to look at the ancestral Tree King with surprise in her eyes. "I'm qualified to be the Tree King? Of course, your magic strength has already reached the standard for this position." The ancestral Tree King nodded. Haleen narrowed her eyes. "I'm indeed interested, but there are mages stronger than me. Why did you choose me?" "I only said that you're qualified. I didn't choose you," the ancestral Tree King said calmly. "Under normal circumstances, the position of Tree King will not be yours. What I mean is, if you want to become the Tree King, I can give you a chance. As long as you complete one thing, you can inherit the crown of the secret Tree King. The magic left behind by generations of Tree Kings is stored inside. I believe you will be interested. What do you want me to do?" "I know that your genes mutated in your early years and fused with your magic power. You entered the rare Warlock branch and formed some strange talent spells. You can hide your existence in a very strange way and are very good at stealth and spying. Now that civilization is facing an unprecedented threat, we need your ability to assassinate the pivotal snake infant that Black Star is protecting," the ancestral Tree King said with a deep voice. "Are you asking me to die?" Haleen frowned. The ancestral Tree King shook his head and raised his palm. A black-green liquid substance suddenly seeped out of his palm and floated in midair. Then, the shadow of a golden leaf appeared beside him, and the two things circled above his palm. These are the two key items for carrying out the mission. One is a deadly poisonous substance that the mother tree specially synthesized to restrain its natural enemy. As long as it's used on the pivotal snake, it can quickly deprive the other party of their vitality. Whether it's injected or poisoned in food, it will be effective. This golden leaf is a child treasure evolved from the mother tree. It's called the leaf concealment robe. It can hide your tracks on all levels and strengthen your stealth ability. Helene's expression changed as she hesitantly took the two items. Seeing this, the ancestral tree king calmly said, "The growth of the pivotal snake is very fast. The mother tree's perception of it is getting clearer and clearer. If you follow the guidance, you will be able to find its traces. As long as you can kill the pivotal snake, you will be the hero of the civilization. When you return, this tree king crown will be yours." Helene played with the two items and hesitated for a while before finally nodding. "I can try." Chapter 1451. In a desolate universe belt in the explored universe, the spies of the Star Alliance were paying attention to the progress of the battle on the news and were somewhat dissatisfied with the current situation. The three universal civilizations repelled the first wave of the World Tree's invasion and still managed to stabilize the situation despite the sudden chaos. As expected of a universal civilization that is in one, they are indeed not easy to deal with. The World Tree's attack is a little weaker. No, it should be said that the resistance of the three universal civilizations is too strong. They leaked the information because they wanted to see the World Tree invade and bring despair to the three universal civilizations. However, the current situation was far from what they had expected. The good news is that although the World Tree's speed of encroaching on the territory is slow, it will accumulate. Sooner or later, it will cause the three universal civilizations to fall into a situation of eternal damnation. There is no chance of a comeback. Yes, the resistance of the three universal civilizations will only gradually weaken and die slowly. I hope I can see this day before my lifespan ends. The spies of the Star Alliance calmed down and regained their confidence. In their eyes, this was a long-term war that might last decades or centuries. They decided to wait patiently. No matter how long it took, they had to witness the defeat of the three universal civilizations. Under the harassment of the World Tree's full-scale invasion, the galactic residents' lives were in deep water. Every day felt like a year, and they spent more than half a year in the flames of war. The World Tree had launched a large-scale invasion of the various star fields more than once. The three universal civilizations resisted endlessly, and the two sides fought back and forth. In half a year, hundreds of thousands of battles of various sizes had broken out, and the cold universe was filled with endless blood. Many places had traces of the battle between the two sides. The Strategic Command Center calculated the losses. Adding up the scattered planets, the total area of land swallowed by the World Tree was equivalent to 3.5 star systems. Compared to the star fields that could easily reach hundreds of star systems, this loss was not much. There were more than 10 star fields in the explored universe, and the planets taken away by the World Tree were just a drop in the ocean. According to this trend, the World Tree would theoretically need hundreds or thousands of years to defeat the Galactic Alliance army and devour the entire explored universe. However, the three universal civilizations would not relax because of this. To them, every inch of land had to be fought for. Many players followed the fleets to fight against the invaders, and their experience was quickly accumulated. More and more players stepped into the Calamity grade. On the other hand, Carrot, Evans, and the other new Beyond grade as were also rushing from battlefield to battlefield? How could they have so many combat opportunities? The strength of these beyond grade as grew rapidly. As for Han Xiao, he had been guarding the shallow layer dimensions alone for more than half a year. The blessed race of the World Tree had invaded 17 times? All of them were killed to the point where they threw away their armor and fled? It was impossible to shake the secondary dimension defense line he was in charge of. Apart from that, Han Xiao had been focused on nurturing the pivotal snake? Find a way to make it stand up? Mating with a secondary dimension and giving birth to an embryo. Originally, he did not have much hope because the pivotal snake was a baby after all. Reproduction was a pressure that it should not bear at its age. But what Han Xiao didn't expect was, the experiment was a success. Not only did the pivotal snake baby stand up, but it was also very firm. It eagerly exploded 3 secondary dimensions that had given birth to ignorant consciousnesses, leaving behind 3 embryos. However, after studying the snake film that was specially recorded, Han Xiao also found the reason. Was it because of the pursuit of the World Tree and the dangers of the secondary dimension? The life of the pivotal snake was very difficult, so perhaps mating and giving birth to offspring as soon as possible after birth was an instinct engraved in their genes? Their reproductive ability was naturally mature, and they did not need to wait until they reached adulthood to give birth. With 3 embryos? He had finally opened the door to the breeding industry. Han Xiao had spent most of his time on this. He had made the breeder, the realmless king, bleed a lot. However, he did not convert the pivotal snake baby into a virtual life form because of this? Was he waiting for the embryos to mature? After having the second and third pivotal snake, he planned to try this plan. He was being cautious. On this day, Han Xiao received news from Oathkeeper and Kasui. He planned to visit them together, so he invited the 2 of them to the base as guests. In the circular corridor of the observatory, the 3 of them walked side by side at a leisurely pace, chatting with one another. The dazzling aurora outside the window shone through the observation window, leaving mottled shadows on the 3 of them. Han Xiao held 2 mechanical balls in one hand and smiled. "Why do you have time to visit me today? How's the war in the main universe? The Galactic Alliance army has repelled another wave of the World Tree's invasion. We can rest for a while, so we came to see you." Kasui smiled. "What about him?" Han Xiao turned to look at Oathkeeper. "When did you guys get together? Are you going to care who I make friends with too?" "Black Star, you're so powerful," Oathkeeper said with his hands behind his back. "What are you talking about?" "I'm just afraid that you'll be led astray by Kasui. He's an old best actor who doesn't look the same." Han Xiao clicked his tongue. "You have no right to say that about me." Kasui rolled his eyes. The 3 of them chatted for a while before Oathkeeper started talking about serious matters. "Speaking of which, in the past half a year of war, some beyond grade as have died. When do you plan to revive them?" Han Xiao shook his head. "I don't have any plans for now. Although my authority is high, it will take about 2 to 3 months to go to the sanctum. If I'm not here, it's easy for changes to happen. Protecting the pivotal snake is more important now, so I can't leave yet." Oathkeeper nodded and suddenly changed the topic. "When the war is over, I will leave the explored universe. I will leave everything about the Holy Covenant to you." Han Xiao was stunned. "What are you doing? What grudge do we have? You suddenly made me panic." At this time, Kasui also smiled and said, "Same for me. After this battle, I'll leave with him." "What's wrong? Are the 2 of you eloping?" Han Xiao had a strange expression. "Is this what you came to talk to me about today? What are you doing? Why are you leaving all of a sudden?" Kasui shrugged. "It's just a long trip. Although it's convenient to stay in the Galactic Society, this is only a corner of the world. The universe is so big. I want to take a look. The underworld is also very big. Do you want to take a look?" Han Xiao narrowed his eyes and cursed in his heart. "You can go if you want. It's not like I won't let you go." Or do you want me to ask you to stay? Oathkeeper said, That's not it. The unexplored universe is full of unknown dangers. We came to inform you in advance. We hope that every time you enter the sanctum, you will use revive on us. If we are still alive, it will naturally have no effect. If we unfortunately die and do not send back any news, you can revive us. That's it? So you guys are going out to have fun, and you want me to stay at home? Han Xiao said unhappily. That's more or less what I mean. Kasui was not embarrassed at all. Han Xiao was speechless. He waved his hand. Alright, I'll remember this. But aren't you guys talking too early? The war isn't over yet. Didn't you hear the analysis of the General Staff? They estimate that this war will take another 200 to 500 years under normal circumstances. Kasui laughed. That's for ordinary people. How can we, the upper echelons, not know? As long as the pivotal snake on your side matures, it will be the time for us to officially counterattack. It won't take that long. That's hard to say. Han Xiao shook his head and said, The pivotal snake is similar to most creatures. It has 6 growth stages, namely the embryonic stage, infant stage, juvenile stage, adult stage, and old stage. Although the pivotal snake is growing quickly, it has only been less than a year since it broke out of its shell. At most, it's in the infant stage, and it's still too far from adulthood. No matter what, it definitely won't take a few hundred years for the pivotal snake to reach adulthood. I estimate it will take at most 10 to 30 years, Oathkeeper judged. That's not short. Han Xiao spread his hands. That's why the expeditionary army still has to continue moving. We have to look for the World Tree's main body on both fronts. Now that we and the World Tree know each other's background, we don't have to worry about intelligence leaks anymore. The expeditionary army doesn't have to be as sneaky as before. Kasui suddenly thought of something and said, By the way, do you have someone called Harrison under you? You know him? Han Xiao was surprised. I went to support a battlefield previously, and it happened to be not far from the Blue Star Civilization's refuge planet. Therefore, after the battle, I went to Floating Dragon Island to take a look. Ames was not at home, and her general manager, Jenny, received me. She knows about our relationship and wants me to pass a message to you. What message? Han Xiao was curious. She said she's pregnant. Kasui's tone was playful. F***ck. Han Xiao was shocked. It's not mine. I've never mated with her. Don't F***king talk nonsense. What are you thinking? Kasui raised his eyebrows. She said that the child's father is Harrison, not you. Why are you so agitated? Phew, that's good. Next time, can you finish speaking in one breath? Han Xiao heaved a sigh of relief, but he was secretly frustrated. If Ames misunderstood that he was having an affair with her sister, it would be interesting. Kasui sized him up and laughed. A transcendent is actually afraid of a mere Ames? What do you mean by afraid? What do you know? No matter how strong you are, you can't use it to intimidate your family. This is called protecting family harmony. Han Xiao had a look of disdain. Kasui did not comment and continued, Anyway, Jenny asked me to tell you that she hopes you can persuade Harrison to give up his position in the expeditionary army and not take any more risks. She doesn't want the child to be born without a father. Hearing this, Han Xiao stopped joking and got Philip to check on Harrison's current situation. He would not go through his subordinate's privacy for no reason, and he had only found out about this today. In the past, he only knew that the two of them had a little ambiguous relationship, but they had not confirmed their relationship. After some investigation, he realized that the two of them had only officially gotten together in the past half a year. In the past 10 years, Harrison had been participating in the expedition in the secondary dimension and rarely contacted Jenny. He had thought that he could not take care of their relationship, but Jenny did not know if it was because no one wanted her or because she was old and did not want to waste her time alone. Not only did she not complain, but her feelings for Harrison grew deeper. More than half a year ago, the Expeditionary Army's outpost was broken through by the blessed race of the World Tree. The Expeditionary Army suffered heavy losses, and Harrison escaped with his life. During the time when the Expeditionary Army was regrouping, he finally had the time to return to the main universe. He had escaped death, and Jenny had finally succeeded. The long-distance relationship had come to fruition, and they seemed to have made up their minds to reproduce. They did not take any safety measures and were in full swing. A month ago, Harrison returned to the Expeditionary Army and left Jenny's side. Han Xiao looked at the file and said curiously, "It seems like no one recruited him. He actually returned to the Expeditionary Army voluntarily." Because of the pivotal snake, Han Xiao did not continue to force Harrison to participate in the subsequent expeditionary exploration. Now, he realized that it was Harrison's spontaneous action. Why is this guy so proactive? Han Xiao was curious. Using the Realmless King as a transit station, he contacted Harrison, who had the mark. A few seconds later, the call went through. "Your Excellency Black Star." Harrison's remote projection appeared and bowed to Han Xiao. "There's no need to be so polite. It's like this. Jenny is pregnant, and she wants me to persuade you not to take risks with the Expeditionary Army. Besides, the main force doesn't lack you. How is it? Do you want to go back?" Han Xiao went straight to the point. Hearing that, Harrison shook his head gently. "I appreciate her kindness, but I won't go back. I noticed that you joined the expedition voluntarily this time. What do you think?" Han Xiao asked. Harrison was silent for a moment before slowly saying, "When I was on Floating Dragon Island, I came into contact with many refugees. Do you know their current state? They live in fear every day. Many people can't bear the pressure and choose to free themselves. The people who are alive are afraid of the unknown tomorrow. No one knows if they will become the target of the World Tree's invasion one day. A new religion is popular, and countless people are looking for comfort in it. Everyone is praying for the war to end soon. You said that my luck is very good and I'm very suitable for finding things. I don't know if that's true, but I hope that you're right. I hope that this illusory luck can play a role and contribute to ending the war as soon as possible." Han Xiao raised his brows and chuckled. "Not bad. You've made me respect you a little. However, you should know that the pivotal snake is in our hands now, and our chances of winning are very high. The Expeditionary Army is no longer the only way, and it might not be useful. The main force doesn't lack you. Your actions might be useless, and there's a risk of losing your life. Why don't you go back and accompany your unborn child?" Harrison shook his head. "I don't want to enjoy myself under your protection because of these reasons. I have my colleagues here, and I don't want to run away. Please don't persuade me anymore. I've made up my mind." "All right, I won't persuade you anymore. Be careful." Han Xiao nodded. "If it's possible, please tell Jenny that I love her. Little brother," these words. "The moment you say it, your death omen is flashing, do you know that? If you want to say it, tell her yourself. Who do you think I am, your mouthpiece?" Han Xiao clicked his tongue and hung up without waiting for Harrison's reply. "Little brother, you don't have to thank me. I'm helping you save your life." Kasuyi listened to the entire process and sighed. "You have a good officer. He wasn't like this in the past. He used to be a curious child at most, but from the looks of it, he's already an adult." Han Xiao paused for a moment before smiling. "This person is a little stupid, but the world needs some idiots like him. Maybe he can really bring me some surprises." Chapter 1452. More than 10 refugee transport ships sped through the starry sky in a panic. Behind them, a World Tree fleet was chasing after them relentlessly. The atmosphere in the cabin of the transport ship was tense. A large number of refugees were in a state of panic, especially the most damaged White Mountain. The word despair was written all over the refugees' faces. The reinforcements we called for haven't arrived yet. If this continues, we'll be caught. The captain of White Mountain was sweating profusely as he stared at the ship inspection report on the virtual screen. On the three-dimensional virtual model of White Mountain, the functional modules were malfunctioning red. The entire spaceship was on the verge of being paralyzed. A quarter of the 28 propulsion engines were damaged, and the power of the energy core had dropped to 74%. Due to the frequent invasions of the World Tree, some refugee planets were no longer safe. The Galactic Alliance Army formed a transport fleet to migrate the refugees in these areas. This small fleet was tasked with this mission to transport a portion of the refugees. However, halfway through, they coincidentally bumped into the World Tree fleet that was hiding in their territory. A battle broke out, and the smaller guard fleet was completely wiped out. Most of the transport ships were destroyed on the spot, and the remaining fleet fled in panic, but they were still chased by the World Tree fleet. The White Mountain transport ship was the most severely damaged among the existing starships. The modules of the spaceship malfunctioned, and its speed gradually decreased, slowing down the entire fleet. At most, we can last for another 10 minutes before the engines shut down. There's a barren planet with a serial number ahead. Should we land? The adjutant's trembling voice sounded. The captain of White Mountain clenched his fists and hesitated. If they were forced to land, the entire ship would have no way to escape. They could only let the guards on the ship bring the refugees to hide on the planet and wait for reinforcements. The suggestions of the other captains came from the communication channel. White Mountain land. Your ship is no longer able to keep up with the speed of the main fleet. We can't slow down and wait for you. You'll be alone sooner or later. Instead of being paralyzed in space, you might as well hide on the planet. At least you'll have a chance of survival. Leave the White Mountain behind and help us by some time to save more refugees. Some people analyzed rationally, while others made blatant requests. They were all trying to persuade the White Mountain to stay. I understand. The captain of the White Mountain ship had a helpless expression as he felt sorrowful. He understood the mentality of sacrificing friends rather than oneself. From the perspective of command, it was best to abandon a burden like them and stay behind to delay and buy time for more refugees on the other ship. But even so, he felt very guilty. In the report, this batch of refugees was just a line of cold numbers, but at this moment they were all living people. Using his own boat of refugees to help even more refugees might be in line with his calculations, but in terms of reason, he couldn't bear to do so. These refugees were not soldiers, and they did not have the consciousness to sacrifice themselves. Furthermore, it was impossible for him to make this decision after discussing it with the refugees. Otherwise, it would most likely lead to a mutiny. He could only silently lead them to stay behind to cover the retreat while the others still had hope and still believed in the captain. This ruined their hope of escaping, and this made him feel bad. Just as they were in a dilemma, the desolate planet appeared in front of the transport fleet. The eyes of the captains lit up as they saw an unmarked small armed fleet docked on the surface of the planet. It was only when they got closer that the radar detected their presence. There's a fleet lying in ambush here? He doesn't look like someone from the World Tree. Are they our reinforcements? Forget it, no matter who it is, they're all part of the Galactic Society. Quick, contact the other party and send the signal. All of a sudden, the captains were overjoyed. They thought that reinforcements had arrived and hurriedly sent out a request for help. On the other side, Pangan and the others, who were resting on this desolate planet, were stunned and started discussing. This seems to be a refugee army that's fleeing. There's a World Tree fleet chasing after them. They're asking for our help. What should we do? Should we help? Don't help. The lives of the galactic residents under the 3 universal civilizations have nothing to do with us. Let's go, don't get involved. Everyone quickly exchanged opinions and reached a consensus. This group of Avengers was not on the side of the 3 universal civilizations. Even if the World Tree invaded, it had nothing to do with them. It was already benevolent of them not to hit the 3 universal civilizations when they were down. Penguin was silent for a while before saying, "In that case, reject all their contact requests and leave this place immediately." The captains of the transport fleet were looking forward to the reply of this unfamiliar armed fleet, but all communication requests were like stones sinking into the sea. The next moment their expressions changed. They saw this unfamiliar armed fleet rising into the sky, ignoring the call for help and heading in another direction. It was obvious that they were leaving them and did not want to support them. "They're gone. They're not our reinforcements. Looks like we can't count on this team." The captain's hopes were dashed, and they immediately became listless. Seeing that there was no turning point, the captain of White Mountain gritted his teeth and finally made up his mind. "All units, take note. Separate the cargo compartment at the bottom of the ship and carry all the crew members for an orbital landing. Set the procedures for the peeled outer hull to turn around and face the attack. Cover your brothers as they leave." Hearing this, everyone's expressions turned solemn. They knew that White Mountain had chosen to sacrifice itself. Although they hoped so, when it actually happened, they were not very happy. They had mixed feelings. Very soon, the two of them split up. The majority of the fleet continued to flee into the distance, while White Mountain decelerated and left the fleet. It turned around and flew toward the desolate planet. It looked like a lone stream of light in a group of meteors. In outer space, White Mountain quickly completed its transformation. The thick armor shell was unlocked, and the mechanical components started moving one after another. The entire carrier ship arched like a prawn, and the cabin at the belly of the ship suddenly separated, turning into a steel-gray escape ship. Its size had shrunk by a lot, and it had almost no weapon component. It was forced to land on the planet. As for the ship that was left on the spot, it was like a hollow armor shell that changed direction on its own. The turrets on the ship fired fiercely toward the back, trying to stop the World Tree fleet that was gradually approaching. Bang! The escape ship landed heavily on the planet's surface, creating a ring-shaped crater. Let's read it. All the cabin doors opened at the same time, and the refugees who were forced to change their simple life support hurriedly rushed out of the cabin. They looked up at the sky with despair and panic in their eyes. The World Tree fleet had already arrived in outer space, and a round of focused fire destroyed the armor shell they had left in outer space. It slowly descended and expanded in front of everyone like a shadow. "Why did you stop? Why did you land here? You surrounded us." The refugees were in an uproar. They glared at the guards beside them with hatred and anger. Without them knowing, the captain had ordered the spaceship to land, instantly reducing their chances of escaping to zero. "Everyone, listen up. Follow the soldiers on the ship and spread out." The captain of White Mountain did not explain. Now was not the time to say anything. He could only harden his heart and give the order coldly. He knew that the chances of everyone surviving were close to zero after the forced landing, but he still wanted to make one last effort and hide with the refugees. However, the next moment, when he saw the actions of the World Tree battleships clearly, he finally fell into despair. The cannons of the World Tree fleet were all aimed at the planet's surface. They were clearly preparing to save time and wipe out the planet directly. "We're dead meat. However, I've delayed the World Tree fleet by firing a few rounds here. My mission is completed." The captain of White Mountain clenched his fists, and his expression changed rapidly. There was unwillingness, but there was also a hint of relief. However, just as the crowd raised their heads and welcomed the Star Destroyer cannon that destroyed them with eyes filled with fear, a resplendent light suddenly shot over from another direction in the starry sky, piercing through several World Tree battleships and exploding into fireworks. Everyone looked over in shock and saw a meteor wrapped in dense flames rapidly approaching. Dense pugilist flames shot out crazily like heavy cannons, bombarding the World Tree fleet one after another. The battleships were blown into pieces one after another. Behind Penguin was the armed fleet that had just left. At this moment, they returned and crippled the World Tree fleet that was not too large in size in the blink of an eye. The battle did not last long. Under the watchful eyes of the crew of White Mountain, Penguin led the Avenger fleet and quickly swept through the enemy ships that filled the sky. The huge World Tree fleet was only left with wreckage and parts floating in outer space. This wave of narrowly escaping death made the refugees unable to control their emotions. The crowd cheered in joy. The captain of White Mountain seemed to have woken up from a dream and hurriedly got someone to contact this armed fleet to express his gratitude. However, after the other party finished fighting the World Tree fleet, they still did not reply coldly. They had no intention of communicating, as if they had only done a small favor. They turned around and left without saying anything, not even bothering to clean up the battlefield. This is obviously not the Galactic Alliance army. What kind of army is it? The captain of White Mountain looked at the departing Avenger fleet and muttered to himself in a daze. At this moment, Penguin returned to the main ship, and his other companions surrounded him with strange expressions. "You're really something. You said that you wouldn't get involved in the war, but you suddenly made us turn around and kill our way back. If we are targeted by the World Tree because of this battle, it will be troublesome. It will not be beneficial for us to accumulate our forces. Whose side are you on?" The attitude of the few of them was as if they were denouncing him. Penguin did not mind and waved his hand expressionlessly. "I've changed my mind. Although we won't take the initiative to participate in the war, if we encounter such a thing again in the future, we'll save them if we can. Our target of revenge is the 3 universal civilizations regime. The ordinary galactic citizens have no enmity with us. This is exposing our existence," one of his companions said with dissatisfaction. "To Black Star, our existence is not a secret. If we cause a negative impact on the war, he can tell the 3 universal civilizations about us at any time. After all, he has never been on the same side as us." Penguin paused for a moment before saying with a deep voice, "Furthermore, more than half of the Galactic Society has guessed that the World Tree's full invasion is because a traitor leaked the information. Do you think Black Star will suspect us?" Everyone was stunned. In his opinion, we have sufficient motive to do so. If we don't express our goodwill, what if Black Star really thinks that we did it? Therefore, even if we don't participate in the war, we can't completely stay out of it, Penguin explained. Hearing this, the few of them looked at each other and were slightly shaken. "You're clearly just a pugilist, but why do we feel that what you say makes sense every time you try to trick us?" Somewhere in the secondary dimension world, a spatial rift opened and Helene flew out. Her figure was translucent. With the enhancement of her special talent spell and the leaf invisibility cloak, her current state was close to jumping out of the 3 realms and not in the 5 elements. She could not be observed normally. The whereabouts of the pivotal snake are mysterious, and the mother tree only has a general direction and range. There's no clear location. What should I do? Helene was a little troubled. After accepting the mission from the Ancestral Tree King, she had been searching for information about the appearance of the pivotal snake for the past half a year, but she could not find any opportunity to assassinate it. Furthermore, Black Star seemed to have been guarding the pivotal snake the entire time. To her, that was the most dangerous place in the universe. She adhered to the principle of not taking any risks and did not dare to approach it. After thinking about it, The only feasible assassination method Helene could think of was to add the snake-killing agent made by the mother tree to some secondary dimensions in the areas where the pivotal snake often appeared. Then, she would wait patiently. If the pivotal snake ate one of the secondary dimensions, it would be poisoned. Although this method was very random, she did not have a better way for the time being. After all, she could not control the food source of the pivotal snake, so she could only try her luck. The only advantage of this method was that it was safer. She did not have to take the risk of being exposed to get close to Black Star, giving her a lot of opportunities to try and make mistakes. Helene raised her hand, and a black-green liquid substance floated out. It was the snake-killing agent that the ancestral tree king had given her. With a flick of her finger, a small drop of black-green liquid separated and merged into the ground of this secondary dimension. There were no visible changes on the surface. "I hope this method works," Helene muttered to herself, feeling uncertain. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.